This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, and we heard from Councilor Cavan.
He took his wife to the doctor. He said he'll be here, but he may be late.
I don't know, but he said he was gonna phone in. What was wrong?
His wife had a doctor.
Let me find out here real quick.
I have his number. You need to.
He's texting.
Yeah.
Did Gary, did you call?
No, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
But I never heard the Cub Scout guy called me, talk.
Oh, never got. Oh, that's so fun.
He did a background check on me and said, oh, man, I don't want him around kids.
In fact, I'm calling PD right now. Forgot to register.
Yeah. I should get with me. You on your way? Yes.
I try new drink every time. This one's it's pretty sweet.
You frequent there quite a bit, huh?
Not a lot. I use those coupons.
You want me to call you on the granddaughter phone?
Yeah.
The granddaughter works.
Today I did the BOGO.
BOGO.
Retreat.
Okay, that's good. We'll call you right back. Bye-bye. Oh, Councilor Cavan, please. He's where he can talk. He'll be here shortly after 3, he thinks.
You doing your award on the 19th? Gary?
I don't know what it is.
He said he's doing the award. You wanted me? I'm like, I'm going out and go to that.
Is that for
ESG.
February 19th?
You have to do that?
Yeah. 11 o'clock at the FOA.
Yeah.
Word.
For ESGR.
Are you doing that?
Just give people jobs.
Howdy,
Kevin, are you on?
I am, thank you.
All right.
He asked me today.
Okay, clerk will note the members present and
Oh, yes.
Councilor Cavan on the phone. And I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda for the Finance Committee for Thursday, February 6, 2025.
Second.
Got a motion second. Anybody have any changes that they wish us to consider? Hearing nothing, nothing from anybody. So, any opposed? Hearing none, passes 4-5-0. Approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from the Thursday, January 2nd, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Any additions or deletions from anybody? Hearing none. Any negatives? Minutes are approved. 5. Now we're to payroll summary.
I had a handout that just went out for the, I had to make a change on the payroll.
Expand your screen, please.
Let's see if I can.
Did you put this actually as a share? Do you have it as a share?
Yeah, I do have it as a share.
It's not showing share, it's a share, it's not. Next to
Yeah.
it, covering pretty well there. Yeah.
Oh,
Share with your neighborhood. Share.
My neighborhood, yeah. Doing well.
the handle. Okay.
They can get the every home loan grant if they have it because they give people that haven't signed away. They just
Does everybody have the handout that I handed out? If, I don't have it attached on the PowerPoint because I had a last minute change. Payroll was pretty cut and dry again. Our, yeah.
Doing great. Gotcha.
Our budget was favorable by $2,416,854.32. We did have a little bit of a change. This is the reason I had to revise this payroll report. We had visitor center is being paid through, or actually being reflected in the payroll and in the expense under public relations. We've talked with HR, and it looks like when the payroll module was set up, we didn't have a location for visitor center, so it is being reported in public relations. Everything else is the budget, and everything else is being reported correctly in visitor center. It's just the payroll is being, both the budget and the expense are included in public relations. And I have a footnote down at the bottom that says include lodger's tax, visitor center, budget, and payroll expense. So those two are combined, and I also put a footnote. We're favorable also for 12 months, our variance by $25,250,54.33. We have used 54% of our payroll budget overall, with us remaining budget overall 46%.
That's through the first 7 months. This is updated as of January. One thing I want to just point out in terms of the city's internal controls that's new to this fiscal year. In previous years, payroll had been allocated out to all the departments' access and journal entries to shift line item payroll vacancy savings were achievable by going through our former HR director, not through accounting. So that is a change in this fiscal year. That no longer happens. Another thing worth pointing out and mentioning is in previous years, the city only budgeted for 80% of its total payroll, including vacancies that could potentially be filled in any given year. So this year, we have budgeted for 100% of all available positions, including vacancies. So those will materialize as opposed to previous fiscal years where they did not, and we were scrambling at year end to make payroll.
Mr. Chair, so why would they only budget 80%?
It's a great question. I've never seen anything like it.
That's years past.
I've never seen anything like it.
And I think, Sheriff, if I may, I think they went off actuals and said, well, we never spend over 80 anyway. So we're just gonna budget for 80, but you should always budget for the 100%
Absolutely.
and recognize budget vacancy savings. And then at the end of the year, make the.
Should be positive.
Yeah, it should be positive at all.
And I'll just tell you the first year walking in the door, we got to 2 weeks before fiscal year end and had the treasurer racing down to Mike and I's office and saying, oh, by the way, we're not going to make payroll. So then we had to scramble with all the departments and dig into their operating budgets and take anything that was left in order to make payroll. I don't ever want to be put in that position again.
This is a problem that we dealt with for 2 years. And we couldn't get any movement, could we, Councilman Hill? We talked about it, but we could never get any movement to fix the problem. He and I saw it first meeting, almost. That's water under the bridge. We fixed it. Let's move on.
Yep.
We didn't get in this mess overnight. We're not going to get it fixed overnight.
But Mr. Chair, just for the committees, it's a solid internal control will have an impact on our fiscal year end budget and projections for next year. Good thing.
Okay, any other questions? Councilman Cavan, do you have any questions? Hello?
Councilor Cavan?
No, I'm good. Thank you, guys.
Right, thank you.
Okay. All right. There's a delay when you call in like this. Takes a minute. Get it through. Haven't done that one time. From experience, because I was physically out. Okay, future budget planning. What do we got? Let's hold.
Future budget planning, so update, our budget committee met as a staff yesterday. We've got some reports here that Tony, our finance director, and her team will be going over with you. You've got a detailed expenditure report and revenue by line item account as of the first 6 months. So that's everything. So anything you wanted to see or go through is there in that detailed report. We've also got income statement and balance sheets by fund for each fund as of the first 6 months of this fiscal year. As promised, we need to look at where are we as of the first 6 months of the fiscal year in terms of our budget? How are we tracking? How are we doing? I will tell you from going through this as a budget committee yesterday, and I think the team can certainly chime in. What I'm seeing is we're tracking right where we should be. And in talking to Deputy City Manager Matthews in previous years, that never happened. So to see at or below 50%, particularly on the payroll and benefits side, which is the bulk of the city's expenditures, is a good thing. We're seeing that across the board. You'll see that in those detailed reports. You may see where there was $25 budgeted for supplies and $25 have been spent for supplies for 100% of budget in the first 6 months. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the big dollars, the fat end of the market. That looks good. It's tracking right where it should be. Very proud of all the departments for their efforts to maintain their operating budget. Again, we only allocated out their operating budget, no payroll, no utilities.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, when do we expect to see a budget for the next fiscal
For
year?
the next fiscal year. So the first step is looking at, I don't have an answer for it in the coming months, the next 2 to 3 months. We'll put projections out for the new fiscal year. So
See that 1st of May, maybe?
I would say closer towards the end of May. Projections.
Keep time frame.
Real tight frame.
Yeah.
The sooner the better,
Fair enough.
so that we can take a look at this, and the sooner the later, we'll also have some idea of the impact of what flooding has done to, will do to the budget as well. We'll have a little more clarity.
It's a great point. It's a great point. If I could expand on it. As we know, we've had some floods. Again, very proud of the departments for what they've done in shifting. We had already cut their budget back to 2023 levels for the current fiscal year. That caused some problem. We didn't anticipate there was some software that we were missing. There was some rents and leases. Our new community development group we were missing from that 2023 budget. So we've scrambled to take care of that. Our departments have scrambled to scrape together, PD, fire department, station 1, to take care of things. Road department, streets, engineering, Lewis and company have scraped together to get those bridges and roads reopened. We're tapped out in terms of our money. Now we've received the first insurance check that we'll receive of the $10 million that we're capped at. That's going to fire trucks. We need to replace those fire trucks that want to be ready for any emergency that comes up. So we're prioritizing those projects as we go forward, but cash is our issue. So we know that FEMA is going to reimburse us. We also know that the state legislature is looking at several options. I believe House Bill 31 is one that should be on everyone's radar. That is essentially an interest-free loan for these type of emergency expenditures that would put cash in our hands. It'll be required that we reimburse our reimbursements from FEMA through DFA to repay that, again, interest-free, but it also cover the matching portion, the 25% that's available pending its approval and passing in legislation. But it's a great point. We'll have to budget those dollars into, which means we're increasing our budget for those funds.
Right.
Yep. And another point to that, depending on if there's emergency language attached to it, we could see the availability of those funds within the current fiscal year. Without that, It'll have to go through the regular legislative process. Governor signs, becomes available July 1st.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coulter.
Really need that emergency clause.
We need it.
We're gonna get into that further on in the meeting. We've spent several $1 million and we're pulling money out of all sorts of funds to meet that need. It's gonna be a tough hole.
And it's a slow haul. I mean, it's one of those things, it's a process and back and forth. Very excited still with our consultants through DSR, our forensic accountants that are helping us go through all these damages. As you know, when you're identifying damages on the front end, it's an estimate. As you dig in, you always find more, right? So that's a process. Our initial damage inventory has been submitted to FEMA and broken up into different categories and projects. So smaller projects tend to be reimbursed quicker. We've got a couple of pilots rolling on that. The larger projects tend to take a little more time for the reimbursement process, but it's going well, but none of it is going to go fast.
Well, it appears to me for Washington, I don't know how that's gonna impact all this stuff, but the rewrite the book. FEMA's under a lot of scrutiny. All the grants that they previously had hit a hiccup and it's been rescinded, but I don't think that fight's over by any stretch. So it's interesting and we don't have any cash in our pocket. We may have to wash dishes for our lunch.
We'd be remiss if we didn't thank our state DSEM partners for the work that they've done and the contributions of funding and preparing that have come out of their funds and the availability of those funds. I'll just tell you, Allie, Ashley, and their team have been rock stars. They've helped us through every step of this process, along with our consultants. And of course, FEMA. I know we read news reports about FEMA and the various things. Want to keep our community on the positive with FEMA. They're here, they're working, they're helping us. They're going to be going out some more to provide help. I believe the latest number is $18.1 million have gone out to the residents in Roswell and Jackson County through FEMA funds, and that happened really quick, which of course was our priority at the time, getting to the individual assistance.
Questions? Counselor Cavan, you have any questions?
He got offline.
Mr. Cavan? I might have to call him back. They'll reach out there. Can you hit 9?
Should I do want to keep this?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Need if we could do something. Just, I mean, the whole thing is just.
This is Will Cabin. Sorry I missed your call. If you would, leave a short message and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible.
He'll call in or call me or something. Okay. I'll look at that again in a minute. Lodger's tax income expense. Are we done? Any more questions on this? Big topic. We're gonna have lots of discussion. It's gonna be a challenge to get through all this stuff.
Mr. Chair, if I could just throw out, typically your budget process should always start with your current year and estimating out through year end. So we're at step one of that process. We reviewed at half year. Things are tracking well within what we would hope for. So expectations are good on the first 6 months. That's going to help us complete out an estimate through year end, which includes, will tell us where we think cash balances will lie at year end. Cash balances at year end are cash balances in beginning new fiscal year. That's your starting point for your new fiscal year's projection and development. It'll also speak a lot to where we think we're going to be with all the various revenue sources. Again, council members, you've got that in your packet with the detail. So you can even project that out yourselves and see how well I think we're doing in terms of stably and properly managing each department's budget. Again, very proud of all the departments for their work on this relative to what we've seen in the past.
Well, I think that's a pretty good start, but remember, we started this budget year in the hole, so that's the other part of this that we don't talk about very much, but it's very much an issue that we need to deal with.
I don't think we've ever seen a budget with the city where it didn't start out of balance. And of course, a hot topic of conversation has always been the indirect costs. But that is essentially a tool for balancing your budget, and that's how it's been done. I have no doubt that that's how it will have to be done this year as well.
Well, the city of Roswell has, in its far distant past, had balanced budgets. In the last decade, we have not. Maybe further than that, but that's when I was paying the most attention. So, larger tax income and expenses, Ms. Gomez.
In your packet, you have a sheet of the largest tax, what has been collected in revenue and expensed out in expenses, sorry. So year to date, we've collected 1,035,251.57 in revenue. And our expenses in payroll are 131,743.13, and operating expenses is 267,327.96. We have encumbrances of 264, 225.64. So they have been staying within their budget. They have used about 63% of their payroll and 44% of their operating expense.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
I do have a question. That we have not made any transfers out of this fund yet. You know, here we're in the need of cash, and this money's sitting in the convention or the lodgers tax fund. Why have we not transferred money to the zoo that comes out of this fund for the convention center? It's the budgeted amount, and I don't think the zoo's running at $1 million cost, but it was budgeted for $1,016,000. Yet we have not made a transfer out of the lodgers tax fund back to the general fund. We've been operating it out of the general fund.
That's true. It's essentially a journal entry.
Right, but it'll freeze up cash.
Yes,
It
so
will.
it
And
We'll
will.
freeze it up to the general
in the
fund.
general fund, yes.
Correct. And I'm hearing we're out of cash.
We generally do that close to the end.
The end of the year, yeah.
Well, you've got an idea now. We've got 6 months of operations. Why can't we do it now? You're telling me you're out of cash.
Oh, we are out of cash. Anybody
It'd be a journal entry to transfer it, and then we do a budget adjustment request to place it in budget.
Right. And you can true it up at the end of the year. You can at least know what 6 months of costs are.
Right. Well, actually, we don't have to do a general entry on it because it is already included in the budget that was approved by DFA. So all we have to do is just do the transfer.
Do the transfer and free the money up to the general fund.
It's there anyway. It's accounted for. We know it's available. And it's not going to take a whole lot of work to get our hands on the money, and it's safe where it is. That we identify.
I disagree with you, Council.
Well, you can just do what you want to.
Because standard operating procedure should be when the cost is incurred, you recognize it and pay for it. We're a cash basis entity.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, just traditionally, from what we've been able to observe with the cities in previous budgets, they wait till year end again to shore it up. I'll just tell you, at other organizations I've been at, we did it quarterly. But I will say this, for example, when I was at the school district, we did it quarterly, but we had everything on lock. So there was no bending of the internal controls. There was no way possible to do that. We did not have that as a city until recently. So I understand what you're saying, and I think we can certainly transfer it in at this time. And I think we've got a real good feel for where we're at and what's going on. Whereas last year, I wouldn't have felt so comfortable about that.
Right, but you know what you have. And that's all I'm saying is that you know what you have. The transfer funds over, put it in the general fund, or it can be utilized. Right now, it's just locked up and can't be utilized.
Right.
What are you gonna keep it there for? Tell me that.
Well, again, in years past with the internal control structure we had, but now.
That's past history.
I understand.
Here we are today.
Yeah.
And I see that we haven't done any transfers out of the enterprise fund so far. When I
True.
looked at the budget. And those monies sitting over there in the enterprise fund, get them into the general fund.
Well, there's some things, there is, today, we're gonna be moving some money around. And we're gonna continue to do that based on the aftermath of the flood for a while. And I don't object to that, but I think it needs to be done on a quarterly basis, not mid-year, because I'll feel more comfortable with it at that point.
I think if you're okay with it, as Councilor Hildebrand knows, understands, and just mentioned, recognizing that quarter. So you do 2 quarters for the first 6 months. That would make sense to me.
Well, but we're past that 6-month review. And so let's shoot for the third quarter,
We haven't moved any money yet. Why do you want to wait?
because we still don't have any idea how much money we need to move. Because
I don't agree with that. We know you've got this fund's gonna, what's the budget balance? What's the cash balance in the lodger's tax?
There's is 2.3 million.
$2.3 million. He's gonna sit on it and be drained on the general fund? I don't agree with that. Move it over. By ordinance, we said we would transfer funds to the zoo to pay out of lodger's tax, and we're not following the ordinance.
well, let's talk about the zoo. Do we have an idea? I mean, the bridge, last time I looked, was still in the bottom of the creek. We don't know what those.
You've got 6 months worth of cost over there you have covered out of the general fund. When you can cover it out of the lodger's tax. All I'm saying, I'm not talking about what the ongoing expenses are. You know you have 6 months of expenses. You know what those are, correct?
So the proceeds that we've been using, that we've been paying the zoo, all out of general fund, or is it regular budgeted item?
The zoo proceeds?
Just the zoo.
The expenditures out of the zoo?
Uh,
The expenditures out of the zoo, you mean?
Yeah.
That's coming out of general.
It's, yeah.
Is that
To
the
this
way
point.
it's reflected in the budget?
Yes, sir. Yeah. But then lodger's tax are reflected separately in their own.
No, I understand that you got to keep the two funds here somewhat. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't disagree with Councilor Hildebrand on recognizing that within the timeframe each quarter would be the way to do that. I would be a little cautious on trying to recognize indirect costs. Because again, that's going to shore up your budget at year end with as much things as we've had in flux. That would be the one that I'd be worried about.
I don't think there are any indirect funds charged to the suit. There are
There are not, there are not.
those are actual expenses, no indirect.
Correct. We kept flood damage separate because it makes the complication when you sit down at the table with FEMA. And that's the reason why it was run that way, and the reason why POs didn't clean up, emergency repairs and stuff are kind of a new section in our budget because we've never experienced that before. And I'm not, certain we've got, if I can remember, $5 million worth of expense today on the flood recovery, and we're going to discuss, for the meetings over another couple of million more. And I hear what you're saying, Councilman Hildebrand, but it's not that the money's just out there. It's accounted for. We know it's available. Are we gonna need it? Yes. We're gonna need it. I just don't know if we need it at this time or if we can wait until our meeting in April, make those transfers.
Well, I think it's both an accounting function and an administrative function. And I think we can make those transfers for the first 6 months on behalf of lodgers tax. It's included in your packet.
$323,000.
Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, how much every time.
So there's no hiding of anything.
No.
It's all there for you to see. That's really, again, more of a administrative accounting function where we reflect it, and I don't disagree that it ought to be reflected.
We haven't quite got to the quarterly report. We're about to get there, but we're not quite there yet. Previous years in here, we were lucky to get mid-year report.
Well, I think we've, to be fair, our finance folks have really worked their tail off. And they've been providing the quarterly report that is submitted to DFA, which is the official report.
Right, but we couldn't even get those prior years.
Exactly. And that's a problem.
Life has changed for the better.
Well,
True.
but
And Mr. Chair, I put the quarterly report in each of y'all's boxes last week.
so we're headed in the right direction.
I still don't see, I understand your resistance to take the money, you're telling me you're out of cash in the general fund, take $300,000 and put it in the general fund. I still don't understand why you don't want to do that. Out of lodgers tax into the general fund.
The Zoom money.
Right.
And again, I think that's an administrative accounting function that's easy. Yeah. And then it's reflected within the quarter of the activity.
That's the way it should be every quarter. You know what your costs are. You know what's sitting in the lodgers tax fund. Is there money to cover it? If there is, move it over.
So maybe I misunderstood you. Are you talking about the 2.3 or just the 300,000?
The actual cost
300,000?
323.
for the first 6 months of operation.
They're covered under the lodgers tax legislation, so.
It's the proper thing to do. It really is.
Okay. Are we done with this? Okay. Customer water credits. Mr. Alford, you're sitting behind me. What's going on?
All right, so I'm here to provide an update on where we're at with the July and August water credit. So far, as of January 24th, 2025, we've adjusted $125,855.79 worth of water credits to the customer accounts. We're a little less than a quarter of the way through all the requests we received. Of the requests that we received, 157 customer accounts did not qualify for the credit due to either being charged at the current rate that's in place or at a lower rate due to their consumption.
Questions? Moving. Okay. You got off light.
There you go.
Congratulations.
You're gonna go make some more credits.
Okay, now we're total expenses.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, in your packet is what we have expensed out for the month of January, which is all the AP runs. I tried to get a report out of Tyler, which I was unsuccessful at, in trying to condense it down to just fund and amounts and vendor and all that, but I wasn't able to do that.
So the only way you can do it right now would be do an Excel spreadsheet on the side.
Yeah, and it would take me a really long time just to do that.
Hope for no human error.
Yeah.
Well,
Process.
anytime you are changing from one format to the other manually, you're gonna have,
One of these processes we can have integrated into software and be able to time as we go. I think it's going to be beneficial. That hasn't left our focus. I am thankful that we didn't try and change software in the middle of this year as it's happened, but we haven't lost sight of that either.
so let's go, man. If you had to guess what the totality of all this is,
So most of our AP runs on Friday hit around between 500 to 1 million mark on them. And if you look at the payroll run, so it'll show double entries in there because it's hitting, we do governmental, so it's hitting 500. I would say probably around 2 million, maybe possibly, maybe less than that, depending on the expenses.
okay. Disaster purchase orders.
In your packet, you have attachment. It's kind of small because I couldn't print it out on legal and put it in the packet. But what we have spent in purchase orders for the flood is about 2.8 million. We have some pending approvals for you in the packet today for a ladder truck and 2 pumpers, and also some wastewater water purchase orders that you'll be discussing in the agenda.
So the rest of these are not in this $7 million.
So I had split them out on the bottom, so the total is 2.8, and then, and there you have pending, so which totals to about 7.7. That's what the 7 goes.
7784, if I'm reading this right.
Yes.
3.6 million in fire trucks.
Well, we're gonna talk about those here in a minute.
Yeah, question, Mr. Chairman. Are these expenses reflected in our budget, in our expenditures?
Yes. So it's,
So our expenditures or our budget are in the department. So we have expended $2.8 million that are in this current,
within the different departments,
within
yes.
the different departments. So had we not had this, we'd have been underspent by $2.8 million.
Yes.
So that's reflective in here.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're doing well.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing at all.
No, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
That our budgets are operating and able to handle this $2.8 million. So
Yeah, and a lot of departments have gone without doing certain projects or something like that, especially Abraham in his capital. So a lot of that was towards the flood.
and I think, hats off to all the departments
Yes.
That was
being
some
able to operate
responsible
like this
movement.
and being responsible to the community.
Yes.
I think
Good
it's
job.
it's a great job of that, because we would have been under budget by $2.8 million for the first 6 months. Below where we're at now,
Yes.
so we'd have had a balanced budget.
Go roll up your windows.
Let's follow the projects that they wanted to do, didn't get done.
We'll get there.
Just got postponed.
Okay.
And if I could just say, I do want to say, I'm really grateful to all the departments for watching their spending and stuff. They've asked us questions on, oh, can we do this? Can we do that with us? And we try and work with them, and
You've done a great job.
thank you.
Really have. Even you, Dan Fuller, for buying $3 million worth of fire truck.
It's gonna get real good in a little bit.
That here in a minute. Okay, road and bridge infrastructure. There he is.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, update on our road and bridge infrastructure. We've reopened all the bridges, so all the paving has been redone. Lived within our existing budget, do as much as we could to reopen those bridges and the surrounding roads. So all that work is done. The guardrail on the bridge on East Mescalero has been replaced. Currently have a contractor working on the bridge rail on the bridge on North Kentucky across the Spring River. And the last one that we have to work on is the bridge on 8th Street across the Spring River. We're still waiting on materials for that location. Questions?
Anybody have any questions besides me? So the trail, does that fall under you or some, or him?
Typically, it's been run out of engineering industry.
We'll work together. Okay.
It's a little bit of both.
I got both of them here. That's good thing. So where are we on getting them back, getting the trails opened up again? Where are we on that?
Mr. Chair, may I chime in on that? Part of that, as you know, heavily, a lot of that trail goes under bridges, et cetera. So one of the things that we've been working on as a city with our county, with our state, with the feds, is determining who owns these waterways. So until just recently as this week, and really haven't finalized who owns what waterway, but varying legislation and not legislation, law, and waterways that Hess can walk us through more thoroughly. We've got an agreement to recognize the waterways as a group so we can start attacking that. That started happening this week. Abraham can walk us through the progress that has been made. I think that started actually yesterday. And it started down at our Spring River Zoo and our wastewater treatment facility. And we're going to work back towards the west. But a lot of that trail runs along that waterway. And will be, that's step one to getting that open.
So if I understand correctly, then you've already started getting it back in shape. All this waterway thing is still a question, sounds like. You want to chime in on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as you can imagine, some of the city's documents dating back to before statehood haven't been kept as well as they could have been here at the city, nor does the county know where they are. And it's kind of hard when things aren't labeled quite right, it's hard to figure out where they are with the clerks. So community development and legal went through 60 different deeds, looking at trying to trace title to figure out who actually owned the Spring River, if anybody. And we couldn't find a single deed that showed ownership to the middle of it. Similarly, in 1912, as everyone here is probably aware, the Spring River was navigable, at least significant portions of it were. So when New Mexico became a state, the bottomlands of the then navigable river would actually have reverted to the state of New Mexico. So the state didn't have any documentation suggesting they had transferred it to the city or the county, nor did the city immediately find any. Now we know parts of the Spring River were part of a canal district and there's things like that, and we're still trying to figure out where these documents are. They're not in city control. Long story short, the state is going to, the county already has, and the state is going to quit claim any possible interest they have in the Spring River. And the city will probably accept it, assuming that the state will cover all the reconstruction of the Spring River corridor that FEMA doesn't cover.
As mentioned, we received the quit claim deed from the county for the Spring River within the city proper.
Will they include the trail too that goes through the?
This is Spring River.
Well, yeah, that's part of the issue is that we don't have the bounds for what the Spring River was then. So, yeah, but for me, an interesting problem is, does the state actually own parts of golf course? Entirely possible. Because the golf course deed doesn't include the river, but the river existed before it came to golf course.
But in terms of priority and the walking trail, Spring River, as you know, Berendo River, Spring River, Hondo, Felice, those were affected. We're starting on the Spring River, and that will affect the trail. And that, again, that's step one.
Okay. How about those areas that are not in the riverbed, or there's some that are most of it is adjacent to the river.
For any cleanup that's immediately adjacent, we're going to go in and get waivers or easements from the property owner. If we can determine that there's a property owner, they'll assign away liability in exchange for us cleaning their property out. And then we'll repair as we move forward.
So we're working on it. We're just exactly where we're.
And Mr. Chair, kudos to Jim and his parks group. They've lifted up fence. As you know, our welders are pretty busy with a lot of city projects right now, whether it's air pylons, fencing, what have you, lots of different needs. Mr. Burris and his team have been out there pushing fence back into place, making sure it's safe, taped off where it needs to be, barrels where they need to be located for safety. But that's an ongoing project. And again, in terms of the spending from the city's existing coffers, we're tapped out.
Any other questions? Okay, so I think that brings us to building infrastructure. Where are we on that?
Mr. Chair, members, so for a property insurance update, as Mr. Cole mentioned earlier, we have received about half of our global unallocated settlement, and that amount is reflected in the budget adjustment under consideration today. We've also submitted, we've begun several project applications for flood mitigation costs with FEMA. And the goal for that is to get reimbursement for those flood mitigation costs quickly. We're working on it now. We have FEMA site inspections scheduled next week, and we're going to start off with the Parks and IT building on 4th Street. We have our consultant working on damage descriptions and dimensions to get a jump on that process. Then our consultants, DRS, are here in town working to finalize the damage inventory to be submitted February 10th, which is really close. So we're working through some of the fine details of that. As an example, we met with Mr. Burris yesterday to ensure we had listed all the locations where the engineered wood fiber washed out underneath the playground structures in city parks.
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in real quick on that. So as Mac mentions, February 10th was our deadline from the initial application for our FEMA projects. We have requested a 30-day extension by right. We have that right. Everything is going swimming, but why not? Why wouldn't we? And a good example of one of the things that has cropped up most recently is DeBrimlin Stadium, which, as you know, is leased by the school district from the city for $1 a year. Part of their requirement is they maintain, fix, clean up, those types of things, unless it's a structural damage issue. So when you drive by DeBrimlin Stadium, when you drive by DeBrunel Stadium, you may see that there has been no movement, no work. There's still trash cans strewn around the field. I will tell you that I spoke to the school district's insurer through CCMSI. We have sent out our own engineers. They have submitted a report to the superintendent of the schools. And so we would like for them to get out there and get that stuff cleaned up. Again, no structural issues within the leased property, according to the terms of the lease. And of course, we want to make sure those fields are available to our families, their kids, their moms and dads, when football season, soccer season comes up.
Right.
And it'd be great for the school district to go ahead and get their maintenance team out there and clean that up.
Okay. So, do we have, anybody have any questions?
Back to the bike trail, it's gonna be a long time before that's ready, right? Because you have to replace all the retaining wall.
Exactly.
We can open that up.
That's the primary.
Even have to save the rocks and reuse them.
They call that riprap. But the rocks, as you know, were a POW construction project by the Germans during World War II. We have got state historical helping us through that process as well. Step one, again, is debris removal, removing those large pedestrian bridges at the Spring River Zoo. So if you think about Spring River and how it comes down and where it ends up essentially at our wastewater plant and down in that basin area. But as you get past the pond at the zoo, it makes a sharp corner. Those large pedestrian bridges are down, they've been down. The retaining wall on the north side of the pond has been down, it's seeping through. I'm surprised it hasn't collapsed already. But that being why we wanted to start there, we know that almost like clockwork, every time you have a school graduation, May 24th, here comes the first big rainstorm. Monsoons really start to pick up in June and July. We want to make sure that the work we're doing is not for naught. So we're clearing out and again, working that area where it bottlenecks essentially and going back.
Well, I saw where that corner is, it's full of debris.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, those large pedestrian bridges.
even past where that corner is.
Yeah, we don't have the capacity for that. Mr. Burris.
I speak to that, we cut the fence on Atkinson about an hour ago. They backfilled the ground there by the pond. We flagged all our irrigation and building a road on that side. So they've started clearing down in the riverbed itself. And so as they build that road, they'll be able to bring more equipment in there, pull the bridges out. That started about an hour or so ago. And then as far as the trails go, Abraham can tell you that he's got a team coming from the other end doing the debris, and they've put in so far of the river itself.
These are our heavy hitter contractors. They're going to have cranes and everything else available that would be needed to get those, again, those large pedestrian bridges. We don't have the capacity to do that on our own. Otherwise, they'd already be out of there. Ashbrit is the team that's been working with Abraham and his team. You probably saw their large grapple trucks making the rounds through the city. That'll also be part of this waterway clearance debris removal. Is they'll start scheduling, I believe, February 7th to start going back out with the grappler services. If you've gone down 9th Street, over to 3rd Street and 4th Street over along the Spring River corridor, you've probably noticed that the piles have returned. There's been more sheetrock, water heaters, etc., put out curbside. So again, tomorrow they'll start sending those trucks back out. We wanted to wait until we got some clarification on the waterways so we could start that, so we don't just keep a contractor sitting idle with their equipment for a couple of weeks while we sorted that out. But again, they'll work their way down the Spring River, and a big piece of that, and Abraham and his team have done a super job, but a big piece of that is that alternative site that you saw for trash collection that's still up and ready to go. So again, now that we've reactivated Ashbrook for these purposes, they'll be running grapplers, they'll be clearing debris, starting at the zoo, working their way back. And all of that stuff has to be separated and sorted, and particularly those rocks, those stones.
It's wrapped.
And secured, rip wrap.
With that.
And do we have any ideas on the convention center, museum, adult center, Jim's old office?
Yes, sir. So again, a process with FEMA. That is where our consultants are really shining in getting those categorized into projects. Again, as you know, we've spent a considerable amount on those facilities, mucking and gutting early on. And so next steps will be to get an approved project with FEMA to bring in engineers and architects, evaluate those buildings. Part of this process is what they call the substantial damage process, and that's ongoing as we speak, both on the residential individual assistance side and on the public assistance side, which the city's application is the public assistance application. That's where we're at in the process. Again, that public assistance application deadline, initial deadline was for February 10th. We've asked for a deadline extension. We'll add the DeBrimum site on there to make sure we're covering everything. But that's going to be a process. And to answer your question more plainly, no, we're not there yet.
Well, that's what I've been telling people who called me.
We've got to get it assessed and inspected.
It's a process. We're not wasting any time.
No.
It's just not as quick as we would like it and you would like it.
Yeah, we're not in charge.
And in all fairness, the smaller FEMA projects tend to be reimbursed more quickly, both according to our consultants and FEMA. And so I've really asked them to focus in. Let's get these first couple of pilot projects, smaller projects in process. They've done that. That's been submitted and accepted through FEMA. But we're still working that process. And those larger projects like museum, convention center, adult center, IT facility, will be a slower roll on the reimbursement side as well. Yes, ma'am.
The Troop 2 Scout Hut, is that being on?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
I forgot that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, it may still on the records be shown as part of the riverbed. Because when John looked into it years ago, in the 90s, it was not considered a building. It was still considered the riverbed. So that's going to be one of those, who owns the building?
Well,
we own the land.
We own the land, and yeah, they did take part of the bend out right through
But it
there.
may be part of the historic thing, because Nybert thinks it was put in as the same as the museum with the WPA.
Yeah,
Put that on your list of things.
yeah, I'm working with Commissioner Nybert on that. It's a WPA building. We're real confident in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was in 1912. That part was definitely the Spring River, but we have found title to the existing land in the city for that part. So that one we know is our land.
That's a good thing. You found something good.
Presumably the feds would, a lot of the WPA stuff, the feds didn't keep title to. They just gave to whoever was there. So there's no reason to think it isn't the city's.
Maybe the Scouts, no? I don't know.
I prefer that. They sort of build it.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
Any other questions? All right, let's talk about debris removal. Mr. Chaparro.
Mine could be pretty easy. I can pretty much answer any questions. Chad's in all of our. It's still a couple of gaps. So we are going to reactivate the secondary site. We are shrinking the footprint. It was a little too big. It's being a little bit smaller. The waterways, there's two separate projects. Westford is the prime contractor. Two separate projects running simultaneously. There's the waterway cleanup, and also the waterway cleanup, and also the right of way. Those are two separate projects under one contract. Chad was doing two, one's going the water treatment plant, and then turning around and heading back. That is the bottleneck. So we want to fix that for the kids to get a ring. And as we go through there, we start getting up the embankments, stuff will start coming down. So as we clean them, we have to make them safe, and we have to move methodically, it's not quick cleanup as well. A couple of durations, about 3 months, but due to the riprap that we have to identify, segregate, transport, store, it might expand that scope of work to probably like 6 months more. We do have an internal briefing every Monday morning, 9 a.m. with all the department heads, water, park, myself, administration as well. We want to maximize our efforts for this cleanup. This is our last chance to take advantage of this, of the state funding and money and resources. So we're gonna push as hard as we can. We do have engineering moving as well. We're providing as much support as we can, but hopefully we can maximize that. We are working, there's one piece missing is the landfill restoration mitigation. It's a significant project. We did a lot of legwork that we put a lot of work into it. We're within days of, it looks positive, the approval. Until we get there, I'll share it with Chad and then I'll have him share that with everybody. It's a huge project. We're right there.
Why don't you walk them through just real quick? I think, how many feet of water are on that liner? Pressing down on that.
750,000 gallons.
So
1 gallon of water is 8 pounds.
Right.
we initially got a little bit of resistance from one of our helpers in this project. I won't go too far in depth. The issue has been resolved, corrected, and it was done immediately. So again, fantastic efforts from both the state and FEMA in working with this fantastic effort from Abraham in pointing out those issues with the leche and the water that's on the pits and getting in the roads to access those things before we have our next emergency, which would be a rip in that liner. So kudos to Abraham for pushing, giving me a heads up so I can give some other people some heads up and we could resolve that.
It's a coordinated effort with multiple agencies that you have to have those conversations with, otherwise you won't be able to do it. And we're at the precipice of that decision, waiting on it. As soon as we get it, it's a huge win for us. You're talking about multiple systems that are working conjunct with each other, they all have to work. The caps on those cells, those are engineered caps that are virtually came down, overloaded, it's a storm drainage system. We don't have the storm drainage systems. Our leachate wells are buried underground. We have to scope them, cure them, and then pump them and measure them. One of them we got to, it's about 750,000 gallons. So that's pushing down that liner. And also it gets to a certain point where it's going to start coming out. So it's going to turn into a park. The landfill is under a category G. So because we're in that category, we have different exemptions. So we're able to move a little bit quicker, get some more help. And we're within days of this one.
So initially, a particular individual that we were working with did not recognize that as the priority and emergency that it was. And again, Abraham alerted me. I alerted our state partners, FEMA partners, and it was resolved by the next day. So we are there, and again,
welcome. Other than that, all of James' bridges, I'm throwing them away. All of Jen's grass and the trees and roads, I'm throwing them all away as well. We're trying to get a direct haul from the concrete, the asphalt, to go to a local recycler so we can grind it up and hopefully get it back at the cost. We're working with the state on that. So we'll be able to have a lot of access to some aggregate, some base course, stuff that we can use, but they're trying to identify the contractor within the city, see if they're going to accept it. Well, direct haul will save the state a couple $1 million. So other than that, I can stand for any questions. If you don't have a question now, you can always call me, get a hold of my department. We'll be glad to help you with just you. It's just a coordinated effort between a lot of the department heads. Because it affects all of us. It affects Tim, it affects water, it affects engineering.
And that curbside pickup notifications have already gone out through city media, social media. We'll keep pushing that.
So the concrete on the riprap, is someone going to have to chip all that off or how's that?
So the guidance we got from FEMA and SHPO is a historic preservation. Now when to remove them, you have to remove the mortar around them, transport them, store them by hand and clean them off.
So we're going to have someone manually sit there and chip
It's
them.
a long-term project where I'm sure Matt's gonna love to.
You want to volunteer? I'll show you how to do it.
That would take long.
It's very laborious, so when they're cleaning these waterways, they identify one. That one's gonna have to get moved. We're gonna get as much as we can, we're gonna lose them.
That's Rick's gonna love
Oh, yeah, they let us.
At least the POW stayed. It didn't wash away.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, I was happy about that.
But we do have to identify some of it's in there. We have to identify their scope of work just expensive.
Of course, it all pays.
Where are you gonna
Oh, yeah, well, that's,
store this riprap? Is it gonna be out there at a temporary site?
We're gonna sort it out on this area.
So we are going to store that in a secure location where it cannot be accessed by the public or otherwise, because it is historic and it needs to go back in place. And there's a lot to that and a lot of cost to that, and we don't want it disappearing.
I say take it to the prison out there on Atkinson, let them work on it.
Yeah, we may not make that location public.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't want it left up there.
It's a good question. Yeah.
Wherever you take it, that's fine. Just, we're planning not to leave it up there behind the fishing game.
Yes, sir. Good point.
Okay. But I get calls about that. Well, you gotta take that fence down. I said, we're not done with it yet. Patience. Do we have an update on the wastewater?
Yep, all, the sewer line, the 24 sewer line and all their work is back in place with all the manhole. Pennsylvania, the water and bridge crossing is completed. And the Lee Street Bridge crossing, they're doing some they're finishing up with some work over there. And next Wednesday, the city bridge, the water line crossing, they're gonna be starting that one next month. So. Great.
I'll just tell you, if I could, Mr. Chair, Andrew Valdez has been doing a knockout job. As you know, Lorenzo Sanchez retired recently. Andrew has stepped up, promoted up, as has Naomi. They're doing a bang up job. And I'll give you an example. You know, a lot of things we don't always hear about. Got a call from the hospital about 2 weeks ago on a Friday evening. And they said, hey, we've got 5 dialysis machines and a filtering system and this and that, and it all connects. And we're trying to get some tests on our water because 4 of our machines are not working. Of course, they hadn't changed the filter in 2 years, 18 months. But not dogging on anybody, but just bragging on Andrew because I called Andrew the minute I got the call from Warren Yale. Andrew was out there in about 15 minutes with his test kit, testing the surrounding hydrants himself. Warren ran downstairs and met him, and Andrew shared results with him. And of course, had recently done some testing of the well that runs the water lines underneath Country Club as well. But just that's the kind of guy he is. That's who we're. So yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman, I'd like to brag on him too. He came out there, the whole BOT was shut down, got no water. And you guys went out there, you worked night and day, nonstop, got us going. I mean, we were getting ready to shut down the facilities, sending people. I mean, we didn't know what to do. I mean, it was just big water main. You guys had to go and survey the whole area, shut off certain water valves. They worked late at night. They were there early in the morning, relentlessly, and took care of business. So yeah, good job. This guy hit the ground running, and he's somebody to be proud of. So
thank you, sir.
What about the wastewater facility?
For a wastewater facility, we're finishing. We got some broken concrete, but that's about it. We took care of that area. I had a crew on site before it flooded out, so we were there.
What's the status of your scrubbers we've been building for the last 2 or 3 years?
And we got to start up next Monday. Weaver and the rest of the contractor are coming in for startup. Good. Hopefully it happens.
Chair, if I could chime in on that, there was some concern in infrastructure committee, our last infrastructure committee, and just for clarification, you know, we've had a lot of change orders on that dewatering project. That project is now in year 2 or year 3? Year 3. And we are looking forward to wrapping that up. And of course, at the time when we were doing budget, some of us may recall, some of us may not recall. I recall it vividly. Our choices between limited amount of money were complete the dewatering project, get the new screws and pumps in there. And oh, by the way, make sure we've got double redundancy on our backup generator system, which failed us last year during Super Bowl Sunday, as the mayor likes to call it, the big flush event. And I'll just tell you, we were all out there about 6 a.m. in the morning, in the middle of a snowstorm. Bruce Courtney with J&J Electric met us out there. I was sick, and Bruce told me, you know, they won't have one of these parts. They maybe one or two in the whole of North America. You're not going to get this anytime soon. You better hope Xcel Energy can get the power back up. It was late into the evening, I think about 6 or 7 o'clock. Power did come back up, but we were all going back and forth watching the levels rise in those retention ponds out there. And of course, next steps would have been blowing manhole covers backing up in your bathtub, or discharging into the river, which would be a huge EPA violation. We avoided all that, thank God, but that was the choice at the time, was double redundancy backup generator, a little newer generator than what we had with more available parts, and get the screws and things necessary to keep our plant alive and working, versus the land purchase. We want the land, we understand the timing of the land, but that was the choice at that. Mr. Oropesa, rightfully so, said, I want that land purchase come back to this infrastructure committee every month, so we can see what frees up, and I think that's fair. But just for some clarification on that particular issue.
Well, I remember a lot of those conversations, and one of the things that they did was they, as I understood it at the time, they used to fire the generator up, but they wouldn't load the generator.
We are load testing once a month.
Okay.
So it does fire up every Tuesday and we load test once a month.
Runs like a champ now, but it is an older piece of equipment.
I understand. And even if it just sits there and doesn't get used except for a test run, doesn't mean it's gonna stay.
And as you know, I'm sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
And as you know, Lorenzo did retire. That was in the works on that generator. I have asked Andrew to go ahead and move that forward with a purchase order. It is in budget, and we are working through that project right now.
Okay, sound like we're making progress. Any other questions? Okay, all right, now let's get down to some action items. Budget adjustment.
Mr. Chairman, agenda number, item 12 is a budget adjustment for fiscal year 2025. In the back of your handouts, you have the adjustment in there, which is a total of $4,230,469.89 in revenues, $5,530,467.18 in expenses, and a transfer of $132,430.54 from streets to engineering. What I want to say is on this one, you probably don't see that often, is a reduction in the line item. And this is for the GO bond. What was budgeted in the original budget was $172,000, and the GO bond was about $1,600 less than that.
Questions? What's your pleasure?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to consider recommending an adoption of this resolution. 25XX approving this budget adjustment for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Oh, let's put this on the consent agenda.
I agree.
Save Tony from having.
We're still breaking him in, aren't we?
Yeah. I remember that was something good.
I'll never be broken.
Mother said that too.
Yes. Exactly. Want to go there, we'll start the discussion. Okay. So any opposed? Hearing none. Will Cavan, you still online?
Yes, dead on.
Okay. So that passes 5-0. Moving on, item number 13.
That's me. I'm here to recommend adoption of resolution, there's a typo in there, 25-XX to seek approval for the disposal of city-owned assets that were damaged, destroyed, or rendered unusable due to the flood events of October 19th through 20th of 2024. We want to take the list of assets off that were damaged, pretty much a background. I sent the asset list to all the departments. They went through there and they told me which ones were destroyed, no longer usable, or swept away. I put those lists, everyone's items on a list, and it's in your packet. And now this is just a resolution to follow through with actually disposing them from the city assets in their budget. So I'm here to recommend adoption of resolution 25-XX for the disposal of city-owned assets that were damaged, destroyed, or rendered unusable due to the flood event of October 19th through the 20th, 2024. Any questions?
You guys got the list. Hope you looked at it. It's pretty extensive.
It is. And Chairman, if I may, so some of this equipment, is it just scrapped? Like the 2023 Dodge Durango scrapped?
Like which department are you looking at? This is what I got from the departments. They were damaged. They
It'll be on page
used,
83 about.
they couldn't be used again.
Yeah.
And they were damaged. So now with this, I can just take them off the book. I don't know what's going to be happening. I just know that part.
So, would it go to auction or something, or what is it?
They're all being wiped out as a complete loss, so they can actually be summarily tossed out.
So I think the language is damaged, obsolescent. Basically, it means scrapped. It does not hold value, and typically, no, it wouldn't be going to auction. But I will tell you, this is another one of these accounting things that we've come across in the last couple of years, where all the departments were asked to submit their lists. They'd submit their list. Then it would go to our former potable water superintendent to do visual inspection. And then he'd submit it back over to our treasurer's office. And you really hope that they all work together so that it would eventually come to council. Council would bless it. That would then go on to the state auditor's office as a notification to meet the process requirements for that scrap and to get it off your books. And you really hope it all went well and that it happened. It didn't. It did not.
So this is just to certify it as a public loss.
But the problem with that is that by hanging on to those assets, you leave yourself wide open to frivolous audit findings because they go out to inspect it. It's no longer there. And now you got an audit finding for something that should have been taken care of the year before as a paperwork process. I'm just going to tell you, we've cut out that middleman. This is an accounting function. It'll go to the accounting office. And so that's what this list is. And again, it just helps clean up.
Yeah, and that's my thing. As long as, if we're going to do a CPL, a certified property loss, we want to make sure it's out of here. It's gone. And we're not sitting here looking at it later because we got a 2023 Dodge Durango sitting behind the fence. It looks like it's going to bring value to us, but obviously it's not. It's not even on our books. And it's a lot of stuff here.
So much of this is zero value, so insurance isn't even going to cover it.
Well, this is clean up too. It's clean. It's not all about flood.
What would it take for me to put you in a 2023 Dodge Durango?
Throw in 6 of these computers and I might think about it.
The problem you have, especially with these newer vehicles, and I think this holds true for the fire engines that we're going to have to replace, is that they're all electronic. And you get that stuff wet,
you're done.
It may work today, might work tomorrow, might work 6 months, but eventually it's going to give up the ghost and usually start itself on fire.
That's what I say, catch fire when you start.
So,
Mr.
all right.
May I say, we don't have to report it to state auditors. Municipalities are exempt from that, so we just have to report it to the FA.
But it has to have council approval.
Yes.
So The first thing you mentioned is you've got a typo on the
Abstract.
agenda abstract. The second reference to the resolution says 24. Anybody got any heartburn about that? Because the resolution is correct. Okay.
This is based on your asset list. And
Yes.
there were items that were lost in the flood that were not on the asset list. In point of case, the Apple iPads and cases and Apple TV that were just, I mean, they were like delivered a couple days before to IT and then went floating down so they never got on your asset.
Right, so this is just assets of the departments.
So there were other, I mean, don't use that as saying, this is our total loss, because that would not be good.
And that's not the intent of this at all.
Okay.
This is not a county.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion?
Yes.
Make a motion that we approve on the consent agenda, resolution 25XX, consider recommending adoption of resolution 25XX. Excuse me, to seek approval for the disposal of city-owned assets that were damaged, destroyed, or rendered unusable due to the flood event, October 19th to 20th, 2024.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Anybody opposed? Hearing none, passes 5-0. Now, next item on the agenda, we've seen it before. Got worked out now, so I don't get confused. You know how easy. I worked out.
Yes, yes.
Okay, this was, if you recall, was pulled back from the city council meeting. I have correct language here, and what needs to be done is the financial consideration on the old version, because it's still a live document. It takes a formal motion to remove that language that starts with funding source project is funded with and insert in lieu thereof this language, if you so wish that to happen. And then that gets the funds balanced and properly accounted for. You'll recall at the city council meeting, we already had a discussion. I thought it needed to be pulled, or I would have had this language at that time, but I didn't have it. So I'm bad, I guess.
So what are you suggesting here that we need to?
Take this, throw it away, put that in lieu of.
Okay. I could have done that in the abstract, but we didn't.
Yes.
Okay. So trying to figure out how you can,
Well,
make the
you want me to-
motion.
Mr. Chairman, or the council. Let me help
Committee.
you. Let me help you with this.
Go right ahead.
Delete everything, starting with funding source on the live document that's in your packet. Delete all that language down to street professional services, GL 2623-43-23-65 4801, and insert in lieu thereof what's before you, where it says funding source project funded with. It's just a swap of language. That's all.
I'm trying to find the original.
On page 96.
That's just the abstract,
That's just the abstract, but where is the
live document.
live document? The live document's not in here. I don't see it.
The initial should be in there where it says, it's page 96, consider recommending authorization for ratification of award. I have it right here. And what had happened, Counselor Hildebrand, is the Recovery American Rescue Recovery Act was going to cover this, and there was a change because of it was our third-party consultants that advised that to use that American Rescue Plan Act funds to cover something else because FEMA could reimburse for the project that we were going to use it for. So the funding changed. $723 roughly is going to be covered by the American Rescue Plan Act. And the rest of it was just a transfer from GL. It was transferred from streets to engineering, correct, Tony? So it's line item, and the 132,430.54 is what was transferred. So that totals the 133,154.18.
So from engineering to streets?
It went from streets to engineering, yes. And it was pulled from city council. We had discussed it in finance committee meeting, but it was pulled. We didn't vote on it, if I remember. We voted on it, but on the incorrect funding language.
We discussed it, it was corrected here during our discussion. It never made to the document that went over to the city council meeting.
It was online now.
Correct.
It's a little more than a typo.
Okay, I'm going to recommend authorization for ratification of award substantial damage assessment project to Stantec in the amount of $133.54
Can I
with the
get-
funding source to be.
Let's amend it first and then do the whole thing as amended. Please.
Whatever you want to do. I mean, but I'm just trying to get it on the table and get it done because I don't have a live document that has this. And so I don't know how to amend the document that I don't have.
Well, the document, I think,
It's not here.
or is it?
Is there a live document? You said there's a live document. I
Well,
don't
this
see a
was
live
brought to us
document.
from the city council meeting, so the whole idea is, wasn't correct with the city
Just
council
amend.
meeting. This fixes it, but if I recall correctly, there wasn't anything else in the,
Was there anything?
wasn't anything else at the city council meeting except this one sheet.
Ratification.
That's right. Yeah.
That's all we're doing.
So it's into this piece, right?
So I'm just saying, we're going to ratify it, this funding source.
Right,
Because
yeah,
made that motion.
okay. So we got a motion to amend.
Second.
Thanks, you.
Oh, second.
Your
You
time.
got 2 seconds.
I'm
Okay,
just not as.
it's got to be quick on the draw, right?
See if Council Kevin wants to second as well.
Well, it's hard to do with your own phone. So, all right, so we've got a motion to amend. Any other questions or comments? Okay, on the motion to amend, any opposed? Hearing none, passes 5-0. Now, on,
Okay, we'll move to ratify the Roswell substantial damage assessment project to Stantec. As amended.
put it on the consent.
Consent agenda, please.
I got it.
We've wrestled with this-
Here a little
We've
bit.
wrestled with this thing enough.
I guess those other two like it.
Second.
Any further comments? All right. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. I think. Well, Kevin, you still there?
I am. Good job amending that.
Okay. All right, so now we're to 20-inch water line leak, item number 15.
All right.
This is one of those deals that we're having to pull money out of other sources.
They have money in their budget. They're taking it just from one line item to another line item. Correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all they're doing. Moving it from one line item to another.
Good.
Who's presenting?
Somebody gonna speak on that?
Yeah, that's my, for ratification appeal, 225-01743 for the repair of the 20-inch water leak at Grand Street. Consider recommending authorization for ratification for PO 225-01743 for repair of 20-inch water line leak on West Grand Street, White Top Pipeline, in the amount of $104,554 and 27 cents, including GRT, to include a budget adjustment of $18,649.08.
A second.
Nobody made a
No.
motion.
Second.
Our diameter water line repair work was utilizing RFP -25-001 on call utility repair services. This is specialized repair work, which requires an excavator, storing equipment, and building for that. The project is funded with infrastructure maintenance and repair account, 5300-4354-614020.
Good. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the authorization of the ratification of this PO 225-01743 for the repair of this 20-inch water line on West Bland to White Cloud in the amount of $104,554.27. That's including GRT, and that includes a budget adjustment of $18,629.
Second.
Oh, wait. To the consent agenda.
Second.
Maybe give him another year. Two. Okay. So any opposed? Moving on. Item number 16. Which is back to 2 sheets.
2.
Page 102, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's you.
Chairman, committee members, we're asking for authorization of appeal to Construction Corporation. The amount of $96,760.95, including GRT for restriping of city roads. Our city streets maintenance budget had $150,000 for citywide restriping of streets. Out of that, $50,000 have already been obligated for place roadway stripe and paved markings obliterated in previously completed pavement maintenance projects. What was obtained using NMDOT statewide price agreement 21-80500-22-16928. Sandbar is currently the lowest bidder on that price agreement, and this work is being scheduled for this. Staff questions?
Question. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I move that we consider recommending authorization for PO approval, Sandbar Construction Corporation, the amount of $96,760.99, which includes GRT for restriping of city roads on consent.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed? Passed. Okay, now we got one on the Mexico gas. Mr. McCormick.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, committee members, we're asking for authorization for appeal approval to New Mexico Gas Company in the amount of $152,778.09, including GRT. For extension of natural gas service in the southeast area of our center. We've been working on a project to extend utilities to that southeast area of the air center to accommodate some economic development opportunities. So water, sewer, telecom, a lot of those other utilities, we have plans in progress. So this brings natural gas into the picture. This will be funded with grant 4-4050, which has $363,895.25 on and in your packets, there is a map of that. It's the extension agreement with New Mexico Gas.
Chair, if I could expand on that just real quick. So just really appreciate Mr. McCornack, James, for jumping in on this project. As you may recall, this was funded several years ago. It kind of went off in a different direction. We brought it back to the southeast corner of the airport where we anticipate the development. It was originally planned for just a water line. Asked James early on in this process, James, it doesn't make any sense to just do a water line to the southeast of the airport. We need all utilities, we need sewer. Let's see if we can make it happen. He put together the numbers, they fit, and he has made sure it happens. So we're going to have a really good area on the southeast corner of that airport for development off of those older deactivated runways. Again, that's going to be prime real estate for large hangars and various aeronautical related businesses, and maybe some other things across the street as well can tie into those utility lines, but he's done a great job on it.
And Chairman,
Sir.
they also put in, so we can put conduit, so we could put
fiber
optic in there as well, while the hole is open. Just kind of throw it in while it's done.
While we're doing it, do it all.
Yeah, do it all. So that'll also bring value as well.
Yeah. Do you have the map up there, James, or no?
Yeah.
So the red line is the gas line that's going to be put in?
Yes, correct.
It's along the perimeter?
Yes, sir.
That's all it's doing is the perimeter?
Yes.
Okay, so that eventually there are people, what is that, YO Road?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So they could tie into it, okay. You know, isn't a public utility like New Mexico Gas, isn't it wonderful? You pay for the infrastructure and you give it to them. It's theirs. And then they charge it. God, I wish I had a business like that.
But I will say this again, totally agree with you, absolutely. But if, for example, you wanted to build a new hangar that was dedicated to paint facilities, you'd need a gas line.
No, I'm not saying the whole thing in the process. It's just how they get to operate.
Kind of nice
Excel
how
does the
that
same thing. You pay for the power line and.
I think with fiber.
Yeah.
You want to change it, I have to know, PRC
You get some
commission.
franchise. You'll get some franchise fees out.
Well, and then the beauty is, Chairman, this is put in the city right away, so they don't have to they don't have to buy the land or anything. But that's the beauty of utilizing public right away. But you got to fit in there with all the other utilities.
That's the reason why we get a little fee. City gets a little feedback.
Right.
Oh,
It's more right away.
I didn't know
Yeah.
So it's based on usage, or we just get a fee just for them having it there?
You get 3% once it gets consumed.
Yeah.
3% of the
Because at this
sales.
point, this isn't gonna be used.
Basically, gonna sit there.
Well, don't hold your breath, wait for somebody to tie it.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Gotta get it done though now.
Yeah, it's for their use, so their utility use, if it's an active line, yeah.
that. I didn't know that revenue listed for the city. That's
3% franchise fee.
wow. Thank you, Chairman.
What's that amount to?
We don't know.
We don't know.
No, I mean, in the city, like, all the other lines, how much do we get off the gas cut fee?
I don't know, I have to go back and look.
You can look, you can look. It's a line item in here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, matter of fact, it's in your.
But it doesn't just include gas, it's all of them.
It's all of them.
It's all of them.
What's that called?
Franchise fee.
It should be your first or second page there under the revenue line items.
I was just curious.
Well,
Oh, right
we also get,
Oh, it is separate.
There they are.
we get,
They are broken out, Tony.
Yes.
Yeah, cable TV.
Oh, yeah, it is.
we get a little bit, or used to get a little bit from the cable company, get a little bit
It's
from
annual?
the electric company, we get a little bit from the phone company.
Oh, like July to December.
A little bit of the fiber optic.
State and county don't recognize those kind of.
The county used to get franchise fees as well.
The county, I know the state,
Yeah. county
state's
did.
just like, there it is, have fun.
We'll take
Just meet our permit criteria.
Yeah. So under DFA, it's combined into one line item, but on our budget, it's separated out.
The water and sewer and waste management, that's our services. Where's that franchise fee actually come from?
That comes from the services from Abraham. So they charge the franchise fees out there.
Oh, and that comes from, I guess, our water bill.
6 for them and 1 for you.
Abraham doesn't let any go.
Nobody likes for free over here.
Yep, I think that's where we're at.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to consider recommending the authorization for PO to approve the New Mexico Gas Company in the amount of $152,778.09. That includes the GRT for the extension of this natural gas line to the southeast area of the Roswell Air Center.
Consent?
Let's send this to the consent agenda.
Second.
That's not fun, man. I had to remind you all of that.
We're gonna get a sign made, consent agenda, put right in front of him. Maybe he'll.
Get those paddles.
Paul.
Well, how come everybody's laughing but you? All right.
We'll get a sign for you too that's different, please.
I'll look at it. If I like it, I'll put it up. If I don't, I'll hide it.
If you know it's there.
Here he is. He's here. So we got a motion.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That's his 5. Purchase, install equipment, consolidated dispatch, is that from out? No, we're
18.
why you architecture. This, Rogers.
Mr. Chair, members, this request is for the ratification of the purchase of engineering services for HVAC systems in the amount of $144,988.81 to the Plan U. The services will be procured through the City of Roswell RFP 5-002. An analysis will be performed to consider multiple systems, and the work can be moved in phases. This will fully encumber all of our SERLIF funds prior to the December 31st deadline. A lot of the equipment in RPD dates back to the 1960s bank building. It's a deferred maintenance issue. I'll stand for any question.
Does this mean they'll have air conditioning this summer?
Idea.
We haven't had it, what, 2 years now?
Brand new systems.
Yeah.
Brand new systems that you're like. It's been, Mr. Chair, if I could just elaborate. So we saw this same kind of problem at schools. You bring in one contractor who does all the electrical systems and computerization and all that jazz. Then you bring in another contractor that puts in the duct and the HVAC unit, et cetera. And then they leave, and it's still under warranty. So you think you're in good shape. You just spent millions of dollars on it. And then things start to not work, or there's bugs in the system and it needs to be balanced. And what happens? The vendors do this number. They point the finger back at each other. They don't want to drive back out from El Paso or Dallas or wherever they are. So we'd really like to get this HVAC system straightened out, have the vendors quit pointing the finger at each other. Let's just fix the problem. And certainly with our HVAC systems, I've asked all the departments in the future, let's look at our local vendors first. We know where they live.
Yeah. It sounds like a threat.
It is.
Okay, you've got a motion and a second. Put it on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we consider recommending authorization for ratification of the purchase in the amount of $144,988 $0.81, including GRT to McLean U Architecture for planning and design of the HVAC system at the Roswell Police Department headquarters on the consent agenda.
Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, any opposed? It's 5-0. All right, now we're gonna install equipment at Consolidated Dispatch. David.
Jeff, you want to do it? Or you want me? Carrie, did you all be members? So Consolidated Dispatch, otherwise, I'm sorry, I'm otherwise known as Pay Consolidation. We're asking for consideration to approve the purchase of radio equipment for Consolidated Dispatch, $3,045 for $229.86. It was a budgeted capital appropriation, awarded at $350,000. This is to replace the aging radio console equipment, which is kind of a hopeful last step in the huge radio project that we've been working on for I think a decade now. It was having some problems, and I just got the control. And just, this was something that we requested in your ICI. This is kind of a formal request because the purchase order is so long. So, for the questions.
So this is going in the new area.
It will actually probably be coming right about the cusp, but I've confirmed and just that's why we can do that it comes first. We needed that badly that we're willing to put it in before we move, but the move is projected to be at the end of August. According to the county.
Yeah, crammed in there.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So to the chairman's question,
yes, sir.
How close are, I mean, because we both were working on that as commissioners.
Yes, sir.
How close are you guys? I would have thought this would have been done.
Told me that the construction of the walls should be finished by the end of May. And then we'll start our really serious meetings on getting the equipment moved with the
transferring everything.
And his projection is the end of August. I just be upfront with you. I told him if we were not going to be in and up and running by August 31st, they were going to have to postpone it till October because of the air races.
Right.
So how long does it take to get the equipment once if you order it?
I'm sorry.
How long does it take you to get the equipment once you order it?
So my understanding, Jeff, can you help me on this? We've been working on this for a really long time.
Yeah, they said that they have pretty much in stock. It just has to be configured so that about 3 months. The vendor and Mike and myself will be going to Kansas for the training and setup of it. After that, it's ready to deploy. Actually, when we go to training, it's not really, it's training setup. So we'll actually be configuring our radio system there and learning all about it.
And
they said 3 months.
I'm sorry, just on our side, it's going to be very small learning curve for my team as end users. I visited San Juan County that has the same system, and it was just a quick switch over. It's just, if you know how to work a radio, you're going to be able to do so.
Well, it's a long time coming, so.
Well, it is. So back to that initial question. So you're talking about Alex is telling you walls and I mean, so is this something that we're getting dragged out by the contractors, or can we put the press on to make sure
They're
that?
rushing faster than I am really, because we haven't started those meetings with the vendor yet. Because the move is where the problem is, as you well know.
Right.
The walls are great. And what I've seen is it looks okay, but the move is where.
Yeah, the transferring of the equipment is
Yeah,
gonna
I
be.
don't want to make sure we're
gonna be a
ready
big deal.
before.
Right. Well, we need to make sure that we got that part ready for that transfer.
Yes,
And the
sir.
sooner the better. If you're talking about if we can't have the transfer done by, you said August 1st?
August 31st.
31st. Well, I mean, because the air races are going to be
September
10th. Yeah, September 10th.
And that's to stand up and running. We will be leaving something back at the old place until the new one's up and running. We can't just shut it down easy. So Jeff is our project manager for that. I'm pushing for the move because he knows what we need, and everything, even though we're in the county building, everything within is Roswell, city of Roswell.
Understood. Well,
So, yeah, we're taking care of it. But if we go ahead and get the radio system prior to the move, it's okay. It'll move just like it would if it was the old system. The old system's just no support, and some problems.
With the radio system, the only thing that'll have to be moved is on each console, there'll be an appliance at each console. So as we move each console, that appliance will go with it. All the rest of the equipment will be back with the radios and at 11 towers countywide. So as far as moving them, it's just it should be part of the computer and everything else.
So just curiosity, once that facility is set up for you guys to make that transfer, what do you expect that time frame to look like to make the transfer? A week, 2 weeks, overnight?
No, it won't be overnight, 'cause we have to keep them up running, so we're gonna do a couple. We'll have the network and everything stood up on the other side, running before we're ready to go. And then we'll move 1 or 2 consoles at a time, get them over there, make sure they're up and running, no flaws. And once they're set and going, then we'll bring the next 2 in. But we'll have the furniture, people are coming down, have to dismantle all the furniture and reassemble it on our site. It'll be probably a couple of days per
I expect
bit to
about
move.
4 days or so. It'd be similar to when we installed the new furniture, where we had to take down each position. I think a couple of you came over and looked at that. We'll just take down a few. We'll have all hands on deck, and we'll make sure that the community is served through the process.
Tony's going further on this project. Otherwise, it took forever.
I would hope it would have been done before I left the county commission, but it takes time.
You're not the only one.
I know. I know.
Okay. So what's your pleasure? Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to put on the consent agenda the approval to purchase and install equipment for consolidated dispatch in the amount of $345,229.86 using budgeted capital appropriation 4-882, which was awarded of $350,000, which it looks like we'll have $4,771 and some change left.
Enjoy party.
Yeah.
Second. You go ahead. Take it, sir.
Got a motion, a second. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 5-0. Okay, next item is purchase order.
Excuse me, was that to the consent agenda?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's what the motion was.
Didn't hear it. Apologize.
I really got better.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Have we got real money?
Stand this way so you guys have to around. Mr. Chair, fellow members of the committee, fire department's here to asking you to consider recommending authorization for approval to issue a purchase order in the amount of 1.470 for the purchase of 2 Class A HME pumpers from Municipal Emergency Services. The funding source, Mr. Cole touched it on it a little bit ago. This was an insurance check that came from Mexico Self-Insurance Fund in an attempt to make our department whole. This gets us 2 of the 3 pumpers that we're missing. So we're in need. So we did lose 3 pumpers in the flood and an aerial platform ladder truck in the flood. This is the 2 pumpers. The very next item is the platform. But this 1.47 gets us 2. A little bit understanding a custom build on a fire truck right now, you're looking about 48 months out, anywhere between 3 years, so 36 to 48 months out. These units are on a lot, and they will be here within 35, 45 days is what we're hoping. At the latest, they told us 60. We're really pushing for less than 20. They're out of Las Cruces, and so it's going to get the job done, and it's going to get us the calls, and it's going to kind of meet the needs of our pumper fleet for the time. We'll still need the other one eventually, but for now, this is what we need to get up and running at the fire department in terms of Class A pumpers. So that being said, I stand for any questions if you have any.
Mr. Chair. So first, we needed this put on immediately because if we don't, it's going to be how long of a wait?
48 months.
At least a year.
Yeah. Oh. So that's why it was on. Is there any chance we can do 2021 together?
Is there any chance what I'm
We can do 20 and 21 together?
I grouped them 20, 21, 22, or 20 and 21 differently just because it was different vendors.
Okay.
So we just put them under 2 different line items.
Mr. Chair, I'd just say kudos to our fire department, and of course, our leadership at the fire. They all came together to find us some trucks that could get in here immediately and be able to respond to calls.
Make a motion.
Waiting on somebody.
Mr. Chair, I move that we consider recommending authorization for approval to issue a purchase order in the amount of $1.47 million for the purchase of 2 Class A HME pumpers from Municipal Emergency Services to the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion second. Any other comment? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. I didn't hear much out of that.
Aye.
Young man sitting right there.
Aye. Yeah, we're gonna get you a new hearing aid, buddy.
Hey, it's just your day.
It is. I appreciate it.
All right, so moving on now, to item 21.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we're here to request, consider recommending authorization to issue a purchase order in the amount of $2,4,755 issued to Sid Martin Emergency Group for a 100-foot mid-mount aerial platform. Again, funding source is the insurance check that came through. We did, unfortunately, in the flood, we lost our 100-foot aerial platform truck, not before it drastically impacted dozens of lives in this community. If that aerial truck, and all to say, if we didn't have an aerial platform truck, that platform proved crucial. And without that platform and the ability to work off the end of that, I'm not sure if we'd have made the difference we would have made. Thus, we went to look to replace it. Come to find out, there are no ladder trucks on the market. So ladder trucks are even further out. They're 48 to 60 months out, almost 5-year custom built. This unit is about 12 months out is what they're anticipating, depending on supply chain. So it's a stock unit. It's being built already. We're able to score it for a little bit cheaper of a price and 4 years less lead time than a regular unit. So with that being said, I stand for any questions if you have.
Questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move we consider recommending authorization to issue a purchase order in the amount of $2,204,755 issued to Citizens Martin Emergency Group for a 100-foot mid-mount aerial platform on the consent.
Yep.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Emergency water repairs, White Cloud Pipeline. Item 23.
For his.
Oh, yeah, if I may. So Mr. Fuller got accepted to a FEMA training. You want to tell us about that? I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, so it's an honor and a privilege. I applied for the first time this year to the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer Program. Just a little background, the Executive Fire Officer Program is the most prestigious fire officer training, considered the most prestigious in the country. So they only accept 500 applications a year, and of the 500, acceptance rates are anywhere, they only select anywhere between 90 and 150. Very strict guidelines on who can apply and who's eligible to apply. And by the grace of the Lord above, on my first year applying, I've been accepted. So it's a 2-year program. Looking forward to representing Roswell. FEMA takes care of all the costs. I think Roswell's out a meal ticket is all we're out. So they reimburse all flights and everything. So it's good for the department. It's good for the community. And I'm looking forward to leaving my best foot forward there in Emmitsburg, Maryland. It's a hybrid course, a little bit here online. Got to spend some time on campus just outside of Washington, D.C. Huge honor. I'm really excited to walk that path. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Great honor for you.
This means that you're going to sign up for at least 25 more years of service.
Whether that is in the city of Roswell, somewhere else.
No, carefully, myself.
My blood is in the fire service, and I'll be here until the Lord shuts this door. And then when it opens somewhere else, I'll happily go serve citizens of another community. So, but I ain't looking to leave anytime soon. So we're here for the long run. So I got young kids, and we ain't moving. So.
Good.
You got to be here for at least 2 years to complete the program.
Yeah. No, I'll be here very, very much past the 2-year mark.
Well, that's what I get. That's the best I can get. That's what I'll take.
Congratulations again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sounds exciting. Okay, now we're gonna talk about, emergency water and wastewater repair.
This is a good guy.
Who's up on this one?
Members, consider recommending authorization for ratification, PO number 2250132 to J&H Services for emergency water and wastewater repairs due to floods after an amount of $910,140.42. Repairs include replacement of 24-inch sewer line along the Honda River, replacement of manhole on 4th Street, and replacement of aerial sewer crossing across the river. Project is funded with infrastructure, I can't say that word. Maintenance and repair account is 5301-1355-614020.
So this is not in the 7.7 million yet, correct?
It is or it isn't?
It is not.
Pending.
It's in the pending section.
Yes.
Okay, questions? No questions?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to send to the consent agenda recommending the authorization for the ratification for PO 2250132 for the emergency water and wastewater repairs due to the flooding by the Hondo River. This PO is in the amount of $910,088.72.
Good job.
So let me ask you a quick question. What is totaling $910,140.42 that she quoted? And I see two different figures that are probably $60, $50, $54 difference.
That's a great question.
Councilman, yeah, the reason for that is because the original PO encumbrance was $51.70. When you remove that amount, what we need to transfer over is $910,088.72 of the $910,140.42. So if you add them together, that's what you get.
Gotcha. Okay, I just didn't.
So that was the original
I see
PO
that
for
now.
51.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Just to
modified
hold
it
it, yeah.
for the other remaining and then go.
Yeah, so when the flood occurred, Lorenzo opened up some POs, but he opened them with a small amount.
So it shows that
So-
PO open date on that
Yeah.
date and then you modified it.
Yeah.
I know that.
Got him, right?
Been there, done that, have you?
Mr. Chairman, if you had a second, I'll second that.
Okay, didn't have one until
Didn't have a
now.
motion.
Yeah, we got
Darryl made this.
Put in a consent in front of it.
Do I need to poke you with my stick?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, so I got a motion to put it on the consent agenda. Any objection? Hearing none, passes 5-0. Moving on. We're consolidated.
23.
79,000. Is that right? Page number 206.
We're 188.
188.
Number 23.
Item 23, Bob.
Well, I'm glad somebody woke me up.
I
Okay,
don't have a statement as well.
okay, that'll work. Point Cloud Pipeline. Who's on this one?
Chairman, for ratification of PO 2250136 for emergency water line flood repairs. Consider recommending authorization for ratification for PO 2250136 for emergency water repairs with flood disaster to Whitetail Pipeline in the amount of $369,329.49, including DRT. This to include a budget adjustment to 5,300, 4355, 614020, of $369,379.49. Repair to include replacement of water line crossing at Beach Street, Kentucky Street, Main Street, Pennsylvania Street, over the Spring River. Project is funded with infrastructure, maintenance and repair, account 5,300, 4355, 614020.
Will FEMA eventually pay us back for all this? That's the plan.
Yes, so these items will be submitted with our FEMA approved projects. And then it becomes a question of how much will they reimburse us for.
Okay.
That's
But we're trying to
typically
recover.
75%.
Just to make sure.
This FEMA deal is somewhat fluid. They claim that for the first so many days after flood, they'll do 100%. That's wrong. Up to 100%. And the 75% on expenses afterward is up to that 75, although we have heard it's possible to get above that 75.
Up to 90.
On particular line items, if you will. So that's part of the negotiation process that we've still got to get started on.
So what do our consultants say on this process, and say you seem to?
What was just said, up to 90, but it's part of a process. Some of it is dependent on what type of project it is, what bucket it is, A, B, C. Is it a small project, a large project? And they've got their own language for all of this stuff. But
like riprap.
Like riprap. But a lot of acronyms. It's almost like being in the military again, and these guys are just banging through it as you're having conversations with them. But I will tell you again, it was a really good decision to go with these consultants because I'm accustomed to having the 40,000-foot view and be able to put strategy to it, so all the pieces link together. This is all Greek to me, but they can do that, and they've already proven occasion. So
You mentioned, if I may, the smaller projects get approved easier. Is it better to separate? I don't say doing this, but like Dooley Street on one, Kentucky on another, not on this one, but in the future, is it better to do that? Separate each project?
I don't think that's a problem as long as you've got it documented. At least that's what I understand.
Okay. Well, he would.
He knows a whole lot more about it than I do.
And they know a whole lot more about it than I do. But I'll tell you, Mac has been working with them, James, Mike, myself. It's been a team effort, but we've all been thrilled with their expertise in putting this.
I'm just saying.
We're to the max slide, I'll tell you that.
You can do each one.
And that's with the help of the consultant.
Yeah.
Question, anybody else have a question? My question is, it's my understanding that when the flood waters were going downstream and hit these pipes, it eroded some of the bed upward laterally. And do we have any idea, is there going to be some cost overruns on this kind of work? No cost overruns. Okay. So whatever it is, they'll take care of it. Because I know it's one of those. They're pretty much already completed, so. Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, may I say, on the flood POs that you have on there, we are submitting all of those to FEMA for reimbursement. Just so you're aware of that.
I shouldn't leave out, Tony has been tremendous. She's been to every meeting, every training, working with FEMA from day one. And she is the one that's really pushed this list, this damaged inventory list. You know, there's flexibility and there be some subject to change. And again, putting those in the right buckets is where consultants come in. But Tony's been outstanding. So, you know.
There's been a lot, huh?
How'd she have time to get her real work done?
She's
you signed up for hours.
Come in early and I'm here late.
Been amazing since day one.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Any other questions, comments? What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, move that we authorize the ratification of PO 225013336 for emergency water and wastewater repairs due to flood disaster to White Cloud Pipeline in the amount of $369,329.49, which includes GRT to be placed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. So now we're to
24.
Going out to the online.
She's right there. Pink. Can't miss her.
Hey, get a hearing aid and glasses package deal for him.
I Look like
Get a discount, right?
Getting a little.
Jenna,
Oh, you were looking for Jenna.
Yeah.
Don't put a bush in front of her.
I would stand up, but then I'd be less visible.
For years, so good.
Miss Bobby, you may let us know what you need to let us know.
Okay, so the action requested here is authorization for ratification of the expenditure of $186,050.93 to procure engineering services from Corin for a terminal improvement design. The funding source is a capital appropriation grant that was awarded in the amount of $1,980,000. So we have the budget adjustment that was approved by City Council on January 9, 2025. We use the state appropriations grant for funding the terminal improvement. These are the bathrooms that are right the closest to the elevators and the ones in baggage. Met with Knowles and Corbin today. One of the things we would do with those bathrooms at the baggage was they will be now inside the building instead of going outside the doors and using them. And the other critically important thing is then we'll have ADA compliance with those bathrooms.
It's 25. 25 by accident. We'll go back to 24 here in a second.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in real quick, the timing is of the essence. We'd really like to get this thing done in time for what's right around the corner with us. I know we don't always look favorably on CES contracts, but that would be a solution for getting it moving quickly. That's something.
Questions?
We have item 24, she got item 25, but we're on item 24.
Yeah, we're on 24, but she read 25.
She went to 25.
On error, we'll go back to 24.
On error, and then
Sorry
we'll go
about
back to 24. So 25 became 24 and 24 became 25.
Okay. So may I make a motion for 25?
Yourself out.
Mr. Chair, I move that we consider recommending authorization for ratification of the expenditure of $186,050.93 over $60,000 to procure engineering services from Knowles and Corbin for a terminal improvement design on consent.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any further? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. You know, when I was a judge, I had some attorneys that would try to do the bait and switch on my file. I didn't allow it then, but I'm allowing it right now today. But this is it.
Bobby, let's go back to 24.
So on 24, that's consider recommending authorization for ratification of the expenditure of $179,216.33 to procure engineering services from Knowles and Corbin for the NCAR Triangle Site Survey. The funding source for this is capital appropriation. Awarded amount was $4,950,000. And again, I met with these folks today, got a lot accomplished on that. So hopefully you'll move this forward for ratification.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I move that we recommend the authorization for the ratification of the expenditure of $179,216.33 for engineering service from Molson Corbin for the NCAR Triangle Site Survey to be placed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Now, to hear from our other city attorney now.
Good morning, or good afternoon again. Mr. Chaos Coordinator and Creator. So in front of you, you'll have the draft of the Reno license agreement and sponsorship agreement. The legal niceties were discussed in depth in the legal committee, so I'll stick to the financial implication. The core of this is a $50,000 license fee that Reno will be paying the city of Roswell to operate the events within the airport. The way we're structuring it with TSA is that we're pretty much carving the airport out, and it will be their property for the day with the tenants still have the right of enjoyment that they would normally have in the areas otherwise. So the $50,000 is a marked increase from what was going on in their previous location. So that's a financial win for the city. The bigger financial win, in my view, comes from the parking. The parking places, the city will get $1 per day per car. Now, just to give you a taste of what that means, the last appraisal we had a property at the airport that was owned by the airport was approximately 15,000 per acre. You can fit anywhere from 100 to 125 cars. 125 is optimal on a parking on an acre lot. So if we were to get 115, which is not optimal, but still doing all right, we would be looking at $115 per day per acre. If you were to annualize that, that gives it $15,000. That ROI is 280%. And if you're looking at just an 8-day period, which matches with NCAR, you'd actually be getting 6% ROI, which is better than pretty much every lease we have on the airport right now. So that's for the cars. We have $5 a day for parking for RVs, and then we have $10 a day for RVs that have electric and water hookups. None of those exist presently. The city's under no obligation to create them, but if it does, we stand to double our value there. If Reno chooses to put them in, we would just accept the improvement and benefit from it. The city gets no new financial obligations that were not already in the MOU that the council had previously approved. And consistent with what we had reported earlier when the MOU was signed, everything that's been spent for RAH in terms of capital has come from state adjustments. It has not been general revenue money, nor has it been airport money. So we're doing pretty good on this from a legal and financial perspective presently. We'll just see how many people show up.
That doesn't even consider Rogers tax.
That's correct. So and I'll bring that. The only exception is property that's subject to lodger's tax that is not owned by the airport will not pay the $5 because we would be getting $2.50 per night as the bet fee plus 5% then on top of that anyway.
The insurance, they have $25 million of insurance. Does the city have to increase our insurance?
No. So there's $100 million, and that's a $25 million per which subsection is that?
9502, aviation general liability.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that's the aviation insurance. The actual total insurance carried for the events, all included, is $100 million.
Okay. So the city's covering that as an.
Oh yeah, and this is going to be the lawyer sounding a little cold, but we'd have to have an unfathomably large disaster to have the tort cap even implicated.
I just know if somebody sues, they're going to sue them and us.
Right, and we have there's an indemnity clause that you can see in there too. We're fully indemnified for anything coming out of the event by Reno.
Okay.
So I'm pretty confident. You know, in 10 years, who knows what the legislature will have done to the tort claims cap. But for this year and next year, it's still $1,050,000 cap. So, like I said, $100 million liability is.
100 people.
Yeah, like I said, it'd have to be an unfathomable bad catastrophe.
I checked on this. The most expensive incident they had years ago when unlimited airplane went into the crowd would have happened south of the crowd area, so it wouldn't even happen here.
Yeah.
So this is a very safe place to have an event such as this. And I think we're hitting all the marks all the time. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I move that we consider recommending license agreement or agreements substantially similar to that presented between Reno Air Racing Association and the City of Roswell on the consent agenda.
Second. Got a motion second. Any further comment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, now we're for a resolution that I instructed requesting that all the general fund departments maintain 2% savings based on my assumptions of what we've seen in our budget report. This is not going to be hard for them to do, but I think we need to say, hey, we need to see if we can save all the money we can for now. Hopefully we'll get reimbursed from all the parties on the flood stuff. And have money available for the project down the road. And our legal beagle is who drafted this.
Mr. Chairman, quick question is, I mean, savings 2%, how does that affect the department's payrolls and stuff, Chad?
How does that affect them?
Yeah.
So, well, I'm just going to be blunt. There's no other way to be about it. We, as I mentioned earlier this afternoon, we cut our departments back to 2023, fiscal year 2023 level. In the process of doing that, I think we were all trying to make a concerted effort to get closer to a balanced budget. So I think those were good things, but we didn't take into account some new software that the city had purchased and some new rents and leases that the city had not accounted for under the previous treasurer. So we ate those and we've adjusted for those. But nevertheless, we've asked these departments to show us some stability in their operations, which we haven't seen as a city, in my opinion, from what I've seen in the financial operations for years. And we asked them to take a cut, show us some goodwill in their operations and operate within that budget. Me personally, I don't care once we set the controls where they can't move journal entry funds from payroll, vacancy savings, and burn through that. Once we've set those controls and we've given them their operating allocation, it doesn't matter to me what line item they spend it in. I don't care. Make it work. Journal entry between your line item accounts, but keep it in total. And so that's always the way I've operated it wherever I've gone. I've asked them to give me something to trust, and I've asked them to trust me on the backside, that I wouldn't surprise them. So I've never been a fan of jerking the rug out from under people just to do it. I think just like a business, they need some stability. They need to understand and know and be able to rely on, what's the federal tax rate going to be? So I can make plans and move my advance my, in this case, department. So I'm not a fan of the proposal. I think we've already cut them. I'd like to see this through with the controls that we have in place and what we should be obtaining, what we've already seen we're obtaining in vacancy savings at 6 months. I'd like to get this place on lock to where we can rely on our departments in their budgets, where they can rely on us. They're not shocked and surprised and scrambling. They can make plans and set plans. And I'll just add to that, this disaster has thrown another monkey wrench at all of us, including our departments. And as I mentioned, and as you can see in the budget reports, everyone has done a really good job in scrambling. Whether they were out there mucking and gutting their own buildings, you name it. And they've scraped together to get our roads back up, our bridges back open. I can't commend them enough. And I just think we need to reward that with some stability of where we're at and what we essentially promised. What the council, yes, it's my budget, but the council approves it. And that's what we approved on the front end of the year. I would just be a fan of sticking to our what we've told them we'll do.
Done.
I'm done.
So what's the 2% for? What are they? Is that to like carry over for next year? Because we already cut them back to the 2023 budget, right? And then we've had the flooding and
Well,
everything.
I mean, our city manager said that many times, and yes, that was the original purpose of the intent of the budget. And if you recall, well, you weren't here then. We did lots of amending early on to cover these expenses that really contract expenses that weren't covered in the 23 budget. This, I'm not transferring any money out of anybody's line items. This money's I'm just trying to say, guys, thank you a lot. All of those planned projects that you mentioned, Mr. Cole, have been shot in the head because we've already had to divert lots of funding. This is a mid-year. This is our budget. From what I've seen over several meetings, we're all on track to exceed this, it looks like. The last time we had a 1.7% savings in the payroll. So this is not going to be a stretch for anybody. Shouldn't be. It's a mid-year adjustment, so it's just a 2% shade, if you will. We're not asking Tony to go through the budget and credit this stuff because I thought about it a lot. This is just a simple, guys, we're in financial trouble. Floods caused even more of a problem. And we just need to, all of us, focus on trying to save as much as we can. Some of them may exceed this. I would applaud them if they can. Some of them, due to the flood, may have some difficulty. This is just a statement that we recognize the physical lack of resources we have in the city of Roswell, and we're going to deal with it the best we can. That's the reason why it's just 2% instead of. If you recall, when we enacted this budget, Mr. Cole and I had lots of conversation right across the street from the library about a 5, 6, 7% decrease. And that was then. This is now. This is a lot less than anything that that's been talked about in this committee. You've heard me say we need to do a 5%. If you do a 5% cut for multiple years, then this is where you get, or a 6%. I've given you lots of different avenues, but we haven't done anything. This is a positive statement that we recognize as an elected body that we are in tough shape.
But
That may have been made worse by the flood.
we're 7 months in, right, on our fiscal year?
What?
That budget,
Yeah.
6 months.
Oh, 6 months, and we're at 46%. I don't know, I think it's gonna cause more stress to the staff. I think that they've done pretty well for 46%. We're 6 months in without having to require them to go 2% less.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand your concern. But based on what I saw when I was thinking about this, and Kevin and I talked about it, it's not a big money savings deal. It's just a statement that we, as elected members, I think need to understand that everybody understands, we understand this is budget.
Well, and I see where you're coming from, but I think they understand it too, and that's why they're at 46%.
They may, but this is an opportunity.
Counselor Calvin looked at me. Can I say something about payroll? I've just been here 4 months, but the payroll for the amount of funds and everything that's managed, I don't see that it's, of all the payrolls I've done in private industry, they always based it on a percentage of their gross. And when I see that, I think we're pretty on budget, and it's a good payroll for, the employees and the education.
We budgeted 100%, not
exactly. We budgeted 100%. So we're pretty good for 7 months. That's my opinion.
Well,
And I've looked at it quite closely.
so Liz, my question basically was if we do this, how would that affect the budget?
Well, if you took the 2% right off the payroll.
I'm not talking about taking it off.
Okay.
It's by the departments. And I would just say real quick with the discussion that we have is that, we have some issues that we need to deal with. And I think with this resolution, I don't see this as a demand. I don't see this as where it's being taken away. This is an ask from our department heads. Okay, and I spent time working for the city of Roswell back in the day, long time. And everybody in the department's kind of like, okay, spend it or lose it. That was a mentality back in that time frame. Okay, this resolution in my mind is an ask from the department heads. It's not cutting you, it's asking you to see where you can help save.
This doesn't say that, Will. This says you will do it.
And if I could just say.
Well, I'm reading from the action request, so.
It says you shall maintain.
My other concern is that I shall maintain, depending on what happens in this legislative session, if some of those funds are designated as emergency funds, we would receive them in the current fiscal year. And we need to increase budget rather than decrease budget out to those departments. So I'm just trying not to handcuff a group that has shown us some trust and some work and effort to do what we've asked, and that's all I'm saying.
It's just because I know you guys were based on our original 25 revenues of 41,798. This is a savings of $836. Not a big number. But
what's that, 836?
836, it's 835.
What's your total expenditures? I don't care about what's your total expenditure. That's what you're talking about cutting. You're not talking about cutting revenue. You're talking about cutting expenses.
Well,
what's that number? 2% of your total expenditures of 1101.
Right. It'll be more money.
And my other question is, why are you only picking on 1101?
Because it's general fund.
Right.
Because that's what we got control over.
But like now the zoo's in the general fund when it should be lunch.
All these other departments are the water department, the trash and all of that, the enterprise fund. That's a different deal. Remember, we are on the path. You helped get us there on quit robbing the enterprise funds.
Right.
And so we're going to look at them on an individual, at least I hope Mr. Cole's going to look at them on an individual basis.
There's a balance sheet and income statement for each fund. Yes, in this package.
And that you need to, in my opinion, general funds where we've got the most play. We can do what we want to with general fund dollars. Some of these others we can't. And that's what I've been trying to explain.
What do you mean we can't? You can build up the reserves for capital expenditures. You can do all kinds of things in those funds. So I'm trying to understand what you're saying. What we can't do.
It's not as easy. Yes, you have impact. I'm not arguing that. But it's not as easy as your general fund. Your general fund is whatever you want to do with it. It's million bucks. If you look at just the expenditure line item based on our old.
On the budget.
On the budget. Million 15, 210, 14.
So this will affect every department except for the water and.
Yep.
Well,
water, sanitation.
And it won't.
Landfill.
For instance, the fire trucks we just bought for these guys, doesn't affect that. It affects the general fund, because that's where we've got the most versatility, if you will, in what we can do. these enterprise funds and other funds that we've got set up are bound by rules. Like we can't just go do what we want to with lifer's tax. It has to be specific to certain things. Let's go.
Get that. I just think right now, especially with the flooding and they're dealing with, there's so much.
Yeah, I'm willing to get this to the full council for full discussion.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so
Full council discuss this.
back to the way I was thinking of this, and so you brought up shall maintain. Would you consider changing that wording to shall attempt to maintain a 2% savings?
That's fine.
I just send the whole thing to council. And
But I'm
there.
talking about changing the wording right now.
If that's what you want to do, but
Well, you tell me what you want to do. I mean, that changes the wording.
I just think that's pointless
just
because
send
they're
the whole
already
thing
trying to do that
send the
now.
whole thing to council and let's deal with it at council. 5 members have a say so.
That's definitely what should happen.
That's what I say. Just move it so everybody has a say so in this thing.
And we can amend it at full city council if we needed to amend it. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to send resolution 24-XX to full council for discussion and consideration, which is the adoption of resolution 24XX instructing general fund departments to maintain a 2% savings.
Correction, it should say 25XX.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
they both say 24.
But your document over here,
Yeah.
your abstract says 24.
Counselor, did you set me up for that?
You didn't do that.
We've already had one typo earlier that we took care of.
Okay, so I made my motion to 25X.
Yeah, I just wanted.
Thank you for fixing that.
I took it right off the,
Okay, got a motion? I'll have a second.
Second, is send it to full council.
Okay,
That's
got a motion and second. Any further discussion? Okay. All those opposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
2 noes, passes 3-2. Okay, finance department reports. $338. No, that can't be that. Do it that.
I'll start with the GRT. As of January, our GRT was $4,500,001.105. And what we budgeted was $4,091,070. So we're favorable on our variance by $410,035 for the month of January.
Mr. Chair, when do we expect that to decrease because the state did?
This would be this month.
It'd be this month?
Yeah.
Okay. So next month, maybe.
So we're in
That's 2 months behind.
essence $2 million ahead. $2.7 million ahead, is that what you're saying? Or
Yes.
for 7 months?
Correct.
Hmm?
Correct.
Will that catch up because people basically just put a hold?
We don't know who hasn't paid, who took advantage of that or not. We don't.
But they'll still have to pay it eventually.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We just don't know what a real,
There's a lag, like.
Yeah.
we have no
The reporting.
clue. But if you look at this, it's consistent with December number, which would have been for November, correct? What we received in January would have been what was really collected in November.
Correct. It's about 15,000 less in January than it was in December. So. And then cannabis actually has been up. Budgeted $27,331. We received $31,430, so we're favorable. Also on cannabis, by $4,100. So that's good news. I don't know how the.
That's bad news. That means more people are still.
Yeah.
It's just the same people really don't.
That's the
Yeah.
governor. It said it got back. I guess he settled with them and it's back in business. Questions or? All righty. Roger Pass, Justin.
Hey, lodger's tax.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council. I present to you the lodger's tax update, November 24's activity collected in December of 2024. Did have rent hotel not report on time. The SPR data shows that we were 70.5% occupancy, which is or the ADR had an increase of 6.5% year over year. On the lodger's tax, we had $132,870 collected. And on our convention center bed fee, again, we have the occupancy of 70.5% with $64,132 collected. And I've made some progress on the short-term rental platform. Yes.
Because with the races coming up, you're gonna have a lot more of it.
Yes, so I was able to identify 55 properties. Josh worked with me to get a letter out to them. 55 that have gone out, 9 have been so far. So.
You've been working really hard on this.
Oh, I know, it's
Short-term rental
not, yeah.
platforms do not work well. There's a lot of litigation going on between Airbnb, other municipalities, states, even countries, a lot of going in. So I was speaking with Councilor Horn, and hopefully maybe someone can work on getting legislation at the state level to regulate these, because every municipality I talk to, Taos, those, so everyone's having the same issue with them.
And before we get too far down the road, just some of you may not know, that not only has been working really hard on this, he and Zach have both been working really hard in general. You know, we lost our civic center. That hasn't slowed them down a bit. They've been doing meter reads over the water department, and even more recently, driving transit buses. So thank you, Justin.
These start killing the zoo tomorrow. Yes.
Free labor for you.
Right.
No, that's great for being versatile and giving to the city. Thank you for your service.
Teamwork.
Okay. Any questions? Public library. Any questions about the? So, you think by the end of February, you'll have all the flood damage under control?
We reallocated some projects to put carpeting in the auditorium at the facilities is almost done with placing plastics and drywall, plaster and vacuum. We've opened up the meeting room, but it still needs to be painted. That's part of it. The walls in the public area, they also will need to be painted to get, because right now we have drywall and plaster there, and it hasn't, it's back, anything else. We are also just moving our collection around so that the roof needs again in those places that we will hopefully have absolutely no damage in the library. So probably not by the end of February. I'm trying to get some bids for painting. And then, of course, try to figure out where I'm gonna pay for it. Otherwise.
Any other questions?
You see there that we're doing quite well revenue wise. We're hitting the goals that we said we were going to. Month by month, we're making, good profit. We see that, at the end of the day, halfway through the year, we're at 682,000 gross and 568,966 net. We're trying to make $1 million net out of the pro shop. We're on track for that. We're helping the community. We're doing golf lessons. I can tell you that Tim, I'll throw it out there. Tim could have been here with us today. We made an agreement. He's got a couple folks that are autistic children that he'll be teaching today and trade off probably here, and he'll take care of his kids. We've been working with him for a long time. We reach out to the schools and leaders about their tournaments. So we increase those. Now, we're always lagging a little bit behind on our reports because just the timing of everything. So you'll see next month. We restocked the pro shop. We redesigned everything. We're gonna clean paint, got carpet cleaners going out, and we are now getting folks that open up half of the pub storage. I think we figured out a way to keep that secure and organized and under control, and also provide more services for our community.
Jim, how long was the golf course down after the flood?
We had a week solid and a little bit, and it took a while to communicate with everybody. And so we lost a little bit of revenue there.
A little bit, but not much. I think it was about 48 hours before you, and then you were playing 8 or 9 holes and then it.
Oh, yeah, we creeped that boat once we got clean.
Yeah, so just, kudos to the guy.
So the gross revenue, that's just so you guys are self-sustaining then eventually, it all goes back into the golf course?
No.
No.
No, our gross, well, I mean, our revenues go back into the general. And then we do ask, every once in a while that we sell stuff so fast that we ask that we kind of move some money from the revenue side in the store, I guess.
But if you think about it in terms of the payroll comes out of the general fund.
Yeah. So they're covering this, they're carrying the zoo and everything else. That's what they're doing.
I'm just trying to make.
Yeah, I just, an observation, for looking at the first 6 months of operation over there, Jim.
Yeah.
Minus capital expenditures, just on an operating basis, no capital expenditures. They're only down $72,000 for the first 6 months of the year, when we had a budget item of $670,000. So you're doing a fantastic job over there, and that's going to take relief off the general budget.
Yes.
Or the general fund.
And it looks even better when you compare it to previous years.
So,
Yeah.
I can't don't even look at it. That's bad history.
It is.
And so here we are today, but you just continue to do a great job financially and the programs you're doing on top of that. Right? Just so everybody knows the financial impact, your turnaround over there has been instrumental for the city, because a lot of people complain, hey, that's a quality of life, why should we fund that? You know, I've heard that before, and it's not true. I mean, you've got that thing almost to a break-even point.
We'll get there with the new food.
And Chairman, I think if you would increase the merchandise, I think it would balance.
You gotta go out there now. We just got it cleaned up, hung up, inventoried. You'd be surprised. One thing we're working with marketing now. Years ago, long time ago, the logo for that golf course was announced. And so obviously we want to keep our city brand, but we're also going to offer that soon. Once we can swing that, is we'll have both products to sell. And, we can increase our merchandise sales that way. Because now you got to buy 2, not just 1. So, and then a couple hot dogs and a beer. So we're going to get there one way or the other.
Mr. Chairman. So I know probably 15 Green is probably the one that was damaged the most from the floods. Do we have any of the other greens that saw some
minor
damage also?
I guess to answer everyone's question, we do have a lot of phone calls. We're gonna fix the greens. We have to wait until the temperature rises.
Yeah, right.
We have to test drainage before we start putting sod down. The biology of the bent grass is about that. So, it's kind of sensitive. We do have a nursery green. I don't know if everybody knows that, but it's out back by David's shop.
Right.
And we'll just cut the sod and put it in.
But that's the.
Well, 15 will be the toughest one to.
Yeah, we already have
We
have a plan for it, so.
Good.
We just have to wait for it to warm up a little bit.
Well, I have all the trust in the world in you and David and Tim and everything. I'm just.
Yeah.
It's a good group. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a good team and it's running smooth, a lot of communication. And I like the pre-planning part, when we're looking at moving some walls or this and that. We haven't stopped. So stand for questions.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay, moving on, let's do the museum.
Good afternoon, Chair. So as you know, there's going to be a very long-term recovery for the museum. We do have 5,300 items in Chicago for conservation. Those have been inventoried, although we're working with them from here to refine the inventory. There's things that are still frozen together in drawers that we're having to speculate. You assume we know what's in those drawers. We're just going through and double checking those items in which the numbers, we have object ID numbers, those came off during the flood, or the tag came off during the flood. So we're going through and by picture identifying against our database what those items are. So there's probably about 150 items we're still working on resolving in that inventory in Chicago. Then we also have the items that we have retained here with us. And so we've been doing an inventory and condition assessment. So normally you do those both together. The less you handle an object, the better. So we take it out, we're documenting it, we're doing an inventory, identifying it, and then also doing condition assessment. As compared to Chicago, they went right into the inventory, and now the next phase is going to be starting the condition assessment, which for them is going to take about 3 months to then go through and assess the condition. With the Chicago version, they're going to be giving us treatment proposals for each object. So we'll have to review that and verify if that's the treatment that we want that item to undergo. In addition, we have our permanent collection items, we have archive items, then we also have in-loan items, so things that were on loan to the museum when the disaster happened. So again, some of those are in Chicago, some are with us, and so there's a lot of different legs and moving parts to kind of work with the lenders, work with Chicago, work on the ground here. I do have to say that the staff has been doing a wonderful job. We've had to reallocate what people normally do, right? So we have front desk staff who are doing condition assessment, evaluating objects and helping us with the inventory. I think by the end of this, we're probably going to be collections techs, like they can work for another museum or something, but they're learning some new skills. So it'll be a slow process, but we're getting there. And this week we had our first appraiser come out. So the Goddard items, those are items that we retained here. They aren't damaged, but we wanted those to go to a different conservation group. So one of the challenges that we have is for all the items that we have to have values for the insurance company. Handful we did, many we didn't. So the Goddard items are an example of what we didn't have values for pre-disaster. So an appraiser came in this week, looked at those items, and we'll be getting as a report in a few weeks the baseline value. So that's what we'll be able to submit to insurance, and that's what the items will be covered for in terms of conservation treatment. I'm making a presumption there may very well be a gap between the cost of conservation and the value of the items. And so back in December, I wrote a grant. Who knows what federal grants right now, but that I was trying to acquire additional money to fund that gap. We also have money coming in through our foundation and donations, which can also fund gaps like that too. So once we have those values, we'll be able to make a determination on next steps for those which I know are really well loved. We're working with a number of different appraisers to get estimates from them. The service of doing the appraisals, including the Herds and Wyeths. I know is a deep community pride, and so there's 60 of those items Herds and Wyeths that are damaged, and so we're working on some of these. So On a different note, we're doing our first second Saturday since the flood. That'll be happening at the library this Saturday. And it's theme for it's called Triple the Love. And it's in partnership with us and the two other institutions, so Palm Springs Art Center and the Mini Museum. And we've done this the last few years. It's a Valentine's Day theme, so Triple the Love with the three institutions. And the theme also is underscored by resilience. And so each of the projects, it's community family art projects that are going to be done at these institutions, saving water. Yeah, so some kind of water element in it, but it's meant as a way to memorialize and share that resiliency and work through some of the trauma.
So is it only at the museum or is it at all three locations?
All three locations. And so the library, so we're in the library, the Bondurant room for this Saturday, and we're scheduled there for the rest of the year too for our second Saturdays. And then at the Bone Springs Art Center, and then at Mini Museum.
Is it a different project?
Yes. Yeah, different project at each location. So I encourage you to go to each of those. That's kind of right now, I applied for 2 more grants in January. One was an invitation by the National Endowment for the Humanities, only for $30,000, but it's specific to disaster recovery for collections. And so fingers crossed on that. And then the other one we won't find out for several months, but it was for a reinterpretive plan for the Goddard collection. Because as you know, with the Goddard collection and also our Aston collection of American West, the permanent displays were destroyed in the flood. So we have the artifact that will go through conservation, but the actual exhibitions are gone. So we'll have to go through a process to redevelop those exhibitions. And for the example of the Goddard exhibition, what we had was a 1959 to 1969 era exhibition. We already knew pre-flood that we wanted to redevelop it, update it to contemporary standards. So this is giving us an allowance to go after those, but that funding to do that now that it's gone. But we want to potentially make it a larger exhibition, focus on possibly aviation in addition to our Goddard collection. We also worked on different experiments that contributed towards aviation, and with RARA, that could be a good theme. And just expand it, include Esther Goddard, who's a big part of the story, which is often undertold. So again, fingers crossed on that, but we're just going after different opportunities to help support the museum and the rebuild and the preservation of the collection. What's that? Speaking. Oh, we have a lot of programming ideas in the mix. We'll be talking at the New Mexico Military Institute, I think it's March 2nd, to the cadets about the disaster and recovery process. I'd already talked to Rotary Club, but we're going to be open to other presentations in the community and should do one for council as well.
I guess museum days out this year.
No, we're going to
do it. Okay.
It might not be at the museum, but we've got 6 other museums, and then we'll find a site to do it, whether it's the library or elsewhere.
It's not in September.
Right, so in September is air racing, so to a different month that we'll do it. But we do anticipate, we were invited to be in the STEM booth at the Roswell Air participate in that, but we have a lot of programming ideas. One other one I'll just toss out there for your awareness is we wanted to do an advocacy recovery merchandise line. So we're working with an illustrator out of Albuquerque to develop iconography that can be incorporated, that from our collection, that can be incorporated into merchandise like towels and bandanas and stickers and things that we can sell. Our foundation would pay for the production of those items, and then the revenues would come to the city in terms of a fundraising effort. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in real quick, special kudos. What's Connie's last name at our building?
Harold? No.
Connie Harold?
Yeah.
Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Wells Fargo.
Yeah, at the building site. So she's not charging us a dime to have our staff over there. So she's doing us a solid on that. So thank you to Connie.
Yeah, the community really cares about the museum. I know everyone wants it to, eventually come back. So
well, her daughter's an artist.
What's that?
Her daughter's an artist too.
Yeah. A lot of different people support. I got a call from John Bassett the other day, who some of you may know. He's in Dallas now, but he's the one who helped build the Bassett Art Center, that wing of the museum. And so he wanted to get a heads up on what's going on and see how he could support. Yeah.
Carolyn, you're doing a great job over there. Thank you.
Good. Public affairs.
Hey.
I guess rely on the report as submitted.
No, she's on.
Oh, okay. There she is.
It's down there.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My report stands as presented unless you guys have any questions.
What do we think the convention center or the visitor center is going to be back up and running?
Yeah, go ahead. Amanda.
Okay.
Pushing to March. We just started doing the repairs on Monday. They ripped up all the floor, took the mold out, they're refixing all the rotted wood that's in there. We just made the decision today on how we're gonna do the floors, so we're gonna move on that. And then, we're waiting for quotes back on how to repair the wooden panels of the garage doors.
So as Amanda said, we visually inspected, we've got our maintenance team working on it. They've got their flooring already. The subfloor is the issue, so they peeled out the old subfloor. There's concrete slab underneath that. They'll reconstruct the new subfloor.
It's a historic building. The problem.
Yes, we did get all of the permission from the preserve, so we have that. So if anything else comes up, that will delay us because then I have to submit a letter to them to get permission to do that. And so we're working on it. It took me about a month and a half to get the okay to start. So we're rocking and rolling. Will be for the end of March.
And I do have to say for Animal Services, they've been doing a good job. They've been doing, because Sarah's been doing the graphics and stuff. They've been doing information.
Okay, so I guess that wraps up the visitor center and public affairs. Okay. I guess we're ready for
Mikey.
Mr. Esprit.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and councilors. I'll be brief. Just some past quarter highlights with the renovations, transition steps in place. Folks still send teams of people here a week, up to me monthly, for a week to 2 weeks. The grandstands are working for this before, so we're pretty well about that. We've had many meetings around the region with regional communities, specifically regards to making sure what's going on with EMBARK. Working towards now volunteerism. A lot of folks are starting to volunteers, so we're working on that with the Railroad folks as well. I attended ICAS in December, and I'm sure, but it was announced then in 2026 that Clinton Sunbridge will be here at our show next year. The Aurora folks are seeking to hire a couple of folks here locally, and I'm sure they're at that process, but I know that's holding in as a other outreach to our community. We also had this past quarter, we had 5 completed scheduled educational business seminars. In fact, we did one with Sandia Labs. We did just this week, Business County, one in English and one also in Spanish. We had two different sections. We have one next week for the business for the retail workshop, getting ready for NCARB. We have 800 people signed up for that, including many city employees. We have also in March a business legal seminar that will be put on by a out of state, but also a local attorney. And we'll be having our legislative recap after the section ends sometime early April. For the fiscal year, we testified on 2 JTIP awards, one for Pecos Valley Productions, 55 jobs, average salary $21+ an hour. They were awarded $674,000 to $32.96. Air Sale Incorporated, 37 jobs, average salary $23.84, and awarded $564,904. And I will also be testifying for Bill Wise on the 14th of February for the job. In the business retention area, we awarded 3 facade grants this past quarter, each $5,000. Historic Society, Farm and Ranch Kennel Company, and also Quality Inn Suite, where they came the exterior of the building. We made 60 visits to local businesses this past quarter. We have 61 active projects that we respond to RFPs. due to the New Mexico partnership. There are some in there that are a little bit old. We're trying to figure out what happened. So we did send a note out to their CEO, and it looks like some of those projects, we'll get you an updated list for the next quarter. But it looks like some of those projects didn't come to New Mexico, let alone Roswell, so we'll get an update on that. We will continue to support that program. On a real estate perspective, we're still developing shovel-ready sites with New Mexico Site Readiness Program and Nextel Energy. We just recently completed one, Sunset and Monksdale, I think, Road. That, in fact, that site is under consideration for a project currently. Marketing efforts, our website's still very active, over 11,000 visitors. Let's see a lot of growth in our social media areas, and we have advertising and industry and trade publications on the tables or some magazines. One's the one that we do, the one that's got the green alien type person on the front. That's all local, Roswell specific information and businesses. So we give those to consultants and business alike. And then the other one is the New Mexico edition, and we also advertise that. That goes out to site consultants across the country. And we also have a good ad in that publication. That's in partnership with the New Mexico. As you know, last quarter we also were honored with 3 different awards. One was the Governor's Conference on Economic Development, where we were awarded the Rural Project of the Year for NCAR. We also received a award at that same event for our Business Retention Expansion Program. The International Economic Development Council also awarded us an award for innovative economic development tied to NCAR. And not last quarter, but just this week, and some of you may have seen the email, we received another award for by Business Facilities Site Consulting Magazine for Project of the Year, and that was for NCAR. So, and these are good because they bring us international as well as national attention. I believe that's helpful to cover that. Besides that, my report's in your packet. And if you have any questions, I'm here to provide answers.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Since Mike did mention the fact that the Thunderbirds would be here next year, one really thing that makes that extra special is next year is the 250th birthday of the United States.
Yep. Well, that's one of Fox News.
It'll be a heck of a part.
Somebody was talking about it.
There's a lot of things happening in NCAR, and I'm just giving you a report for last summer because that's what I was asked to do. So there's a lot of things happening, and we're probably this currently right now. So we're pretty excited how that's moving along. As we mentioned earlier, everything seems to be rolling on really nice. We got great funding, great support from the state, Transportation Secretary, Durham, big supporter, the county, big supporter. So we're going to save a lot of funding, and they're bringing all on board. We really appreciate those pieces because that's what's helping them make work.
And as a team.
Urban transportation hopefully is going to stand up, and we have some great support from Excel. I'm going to meet with the Central Valley Electric that owns all the power lines on the west side of the airfield in a couple of weeks, and I'm taking the down EE, for those who don't know, are headquartered in Artesia. So we're really bringing the regional aspect to this thing too, with many partners out there that we're reaching out to, and everybody's standing up.
Mr. Chairman, just yesterday, I was asked previously, but just yesterday, I drove down to Carlsbad and gave us a talk at the Rotary Club, which is about as large as the one that we attend on Thursdays here. And about 30 folks, and I spoke about it in the car, and they were just as excited when I left as I am, and I remain at the end. And we said, share that with you. by the time I returned to my office yesterday afternoon, I already had 3 emails saying I want to volunteer. So we're seeing a lot of great enthusiasm across the region. Again, I visited all the communities with Fred Telling, and everyone wants to support and help. I think the biggest piece out of all this is May, which is PRS. And PRS is going to bring in several hundred people, but it also will have somewhat of a bow wave, and we're going to kind of be a dry run for it in a very small way for September. But what's good about that is it's going to be looking for volunteers. They'll get some great training that they'll need for September, which we're pretty excited about. At the end of February, we are planning on having a volunteer welcome. Details will be out soon as we finalize them. And that's how we get volunteers together, give them information, give them expectations, kind of things are available for the volunteer for, and sign people up. So you'll see something like that probably within a few days once I get information from them all. Anything else?
You're doing a great job, Mike. I know your relentless pursuit of reaching out and coordinating all of this is paramount. And man, I commend you. Your award case is you probably need to expand it a little bit. But you're doing a great job on all this. And I don't know what we'd do without.
Thank you. Right? The awards are great. I mean, we really didn't expect all that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't our goal. Our goal was the economic impact.
Right. It happens. It happens. When you do good things, those show up.
I was gonna say your reception, biggest one I've ever seen. Very well attended, it was a good event.
And the governor attended and spoke, and many of you were there, and firemen were there, he was there. Deputies, I mean, it was a good event. Suppose you didn't go, you missed out on a fabulous event. Very cool. A lot of good interact.
I'm just gonna tell you, I did you a favor by not being there.
We appreciate it.
I don't know what that meant, but thank you. Huh? I know.
Thanks for your support.
It was contagious.
Okay, Main Street.
Chairman, committee members, getting the proceed review on the on board of Main Street Rockland is today, and her report is in your packet. I'm just here to answer any questions that you may.
Questions?
No. You just got voted in, Mayor Pro Tem, to ex officio.
Ex officio.
Okay, so Roswell Hispano. Anybody here?
Anybody here?
That's something to log in the back of the That's something to log in the back of your head.
Exhibition on, I will say something. Yeah. Say something. Yeah.
You won't keep the powder dry.
To them, I just say something.
Okay. Any other business? Then adjourn. Thank you.
Oh, you know, public participation?
Public.